I almost said live before lock, but that would not be the case. Deeper dive, filling in for Laffy today. The three-man band, myself, Shit My Money, who I'm not happy with as of 10 seconds ago, Adam Scher, and the boss man, Alex Baker. What's going on, guys?
I think I'll let Adam field this. Apparently, he's got a hot take.
That Josh isn't good at DFS?
YouTube chat's going to love that one.
No, doing good.
A lot of people out there nodding and agreeing right now.
Yeah. No, I'm pretty excited. It feels like we haven't had a full slate in a while.
I know.
With 15 games.
15 full games. Pitching is awkward, so I'm really anxious to get both of your thoughts on a couple guys in particular. I would say egregiously overpriced guys like Sonny Gray. For him to ever even sniff 10K would be just pure insanity. We've got tons to talk about. Let's get the plugs out of the way first. Deeper dive. One big word is the promo code. 50% off your first month of Awesemo Plus. Any monthly package you choose, any package style, any sport. If it's a monthly package, you could use the promo code Deeper Dive to get 50% off that package. And we are brought to you by Yahoo Sports. Yahoo is the presenting sponsor of the strategy show, of the Deeper Dive, and of the Early Bird podcast. They are running consistent no management fee contests every day for baseball. It's a $3 entry, 10 max contests instead of 150 max. So you don't have to compete with people running out a ton of entries like the three of us. Management fees are going to be lower. They're running a 33% payout contest. Just a lot of stuff that is much better for the user in general. If you're planning on playing, I'm going to drop the link to EMAX Spotlight Hitters and Stacks article into chat. There's some information on how to sign up at the top of that article. You could use the promo code AWESEMO and get up to $30 in Yahoo Sports rewards points. That could give you all 10 entries into that $3 no management fee contest.
Josh,
Go ahead.
You're saying it's good for the player, but it's not good for every player, because if I had 150 lineups on Yahoo, I'd win that every night. The competition is terrible there.
From what I understand from everyone that writes on our Facebook ads, all you have to do is play 150 lineups and it's a license to print money. Never mind the fact that FanDuel now offers a 5-cent 150 max contest. So you could actually test that theory out if you want, or you could just write on Facebook posts every day. Either way.
Yeah, I think that 10 entry max, man, it makes a huge difference. Unfortunately, it's not to my benefit, probably not to you guys' benefit, but for someone who's starting off, it's just such a easier task to take on 30 lineups of Josh, Adam, and me instead of 450, right?
Exactly. Per Adam's tweet, it'd be really rough to take on 300 from you guys, and just an absolute boon to those people to take on my 150. Well, enough putting me down for the first 5 minutes of this show. We've got a ton to talk about. I'm ready to dig in. How about you guys?
Yeah, let's go.
Here we go.
It's getting personal pretty quick, but I'll try to keep up.
Starting it off with one of my co-host favorite teams, and they're terrible. The Baltimore Orioles taking on the Kansas City Royals. 4.9 run implied total for the Orioles, 4.6 for the Royals. Dylan Bundy versus Brad Keller. I'm going to throw it to you, Alex, right out of the gate. Anything standing out to you from Bundy or Keller?
I think they're not terrible plays. This is a game, 9.5 over under. That's about average from what we see these days. And both teams strike out at about an average clip. So when you add it all up, it's a pretty average spot. And, sometimes that's good. But when we have 15 games, it's probably not going to make a cut.
Adam, any interest in Bundy or Keller?
No, not really. If I had to go to one, it would be Bundy, just because he does have better strikeout upside. But I think that there are enough quality mid-range options and value options on the slate that going to a pitcher like Bundy that does give up a lot of power, pitching in hot, humid weather in Baltimore, probably isn't going to be where I get to.
I cannot disagree. Don't have much interest in either guy. I think, Alex, you said it best. Average. And when there's 30 teams to choose from, average isn't the best.
Well, I think we got to point out Bundy is projected for 16% ownership on FanDuel and 17 on DraftKings. So this is a popular player tonight,
Yeah.
especially on FanDuel. Like that's like 1 in 7 lineups having him, and there's 30 options. So he might be a pretty playable guy at 6,800, but definitely not a guy that is going to go out there and have consistently good performances.
The 16% on FanDuel is really interesting to me. I can, the $7,400 price on DraftKings is fine in this matchup. To go to him on FanDuel on a 15-game slate feels odd to me. That's not a spot that I want to be.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes stuff feels weird, but then you start building lineups and you're like, man, I wish I had a pitcher that was cheap because I could fit it in my stacks, That just kind of happens.
Cue Alex winning on FanDuel with Dylan Bundy.
Well, apparently I'll have to compete with 15% of the rest of the field, so it might not be that easy.
Lucky for you, my fish lineups won't be there. Any interest in the Orioles or Royals offenses? Royals picking up a decent amount of ownership across both sites, although mostly contained into Merrifield, Soler, and Ryan O'Hearn on FanDuel. A little bit more spread out on DK. We'll throw it to you, Adam.
I think that it's an okay spot for both teams, but Keller's decent at limiting damage. The Orioles obviously aren't the best offense. I really like the three righties at the top for Kansas City with Merrifield, Dozier, and Soler. Soler and Dozier, tons of power, and Merrifield, a decent hitter, but also a good stolen base matchup for him with Francisco behind the plate. The problem is that on DraftKings, they are really expensive. So I think a little bit easier to get to on FanDuel, and on Yahoo, they're expensive too. Well, Soler and Dozier are. Merrifield's reasonably priced there. So if I can get to those guys, I like it in tournaments. I think Ryan O'Hearn's a good value just because of how cheap he is. But it's the right-handed bats at the top that I'm most interested in from Kansas City.
Any interest from either side for you, Alex?
Yeah, I think there's some guys I like as individual plays, like O'Hearn, just like super, super cheap on all across the industry for a guy with some decent power. For the other side, I think DJ Stewart, batting 7th, is a little bit underpriced, but that's not going to be a guy that gets me super excited. But the stacks, I'd be interested if no one was going there, but it looks like they're not too unpopular tonight, so I don't see much reason to build a lineup with them.
There we go. Gonna keep it moving. Judging from my experience earlier today, it really picks up around 8:05 Eastern time in terms of these games and these offenses. So, Pirates and Nats. We've got Chris Archer going for the Pirates, Steven Strasburg going for the Nats. Archer getting a little bit of ownership on Yahoo, not really getting it anywhere else. Strasburg around 10% across all three sites. Let's talk Strasburg first. How is he looking for you, Alex? Oh, sorry, I didn't realize that you just took a bite of food.
No, I'm good. I think that we're seeing pretty high prices for Strasburg. Okay, on FanDuel, 52 on Yahoo, which is higher than I've seen most pitchers recently. 10.4 on DraftKings, and I mean those are pretty fair prices for a guy that's a great but not elite pitcher. The one thing I'm not liking today is the matchup with Pittsburgh. They're not like a high power offense, but they're about average. And the one category where they're below average is striking out, and that makes it a little bit harder to really land on them.
Adam, any interest in Strasburg or Archer?
No, I agree with Alex. I think Strasburg's good, and Pittsburgh does have a low implied run total. It's just hard for me to get there because I think that Bieber's a better strikeout pitcher. I think that Gray is a comparable or better strikeout pitcher in a much better spot. Kershaw is obviously really, really good as well. So it's just tough for me to get there. Like the only real argument I can make in favor of Strasburg is that he will have lower ownership, or most likely will have lower ownership than all three guys I just mentioned in that price range. But with there being 15 games on the slate, I think it's going to be easy enough to differentiate within my lineup without having to go to a guy in Strasburg that I have below all three of those other guys.
Any thoughts in Archer, Alex? Or Adam, either way.
I think that, Washington, I don't want to use recency bias, but man, they've been pretty high recently. And I apologize. Someone pointed out to me I didn't list Washington as one of my top stacks yesterday. Someone will have to pick the best stack today when we get there.
Okay.
But Yeah, I think this is their lineup is really good today. It's above average in every category, especially strikeouts. They strike out about 20% less as a unit than most teams. So I think I don't really see much reason aside from Yahoo, where he's 31, just maybe underpriced for his talent.
Pirates picking up absolutely no ownership across the industry. The Nats, pretty much the same story, 2 to 3% in the aggregate. Either offense standing out to you, Adam?
I'm more interested in the Nats just because Archer, he strikes guys out, he walks guys, and he gives up runs. The Nats really don't have a lot of strikeouts in this lineup. They do have a lot of power. If you go 1 through 8, these guys all are at least decent home run guys. And, Rendon, Soto, Adams have a lot of power. Even Suzuki has power for a catcher. So I think it's a pretty dangerous spot for Archer. The only thing really, I think, working in his favor is that it does look like the temperatures are about 10 degrees cooler today than they were yesterday. So the ball probably carrying a little bit less. And you see that reflected in the 4.8 implied run total for the Nats. But if nobody's going to go to them again, I still think that they're just one of the higher upside offenses because of their ability to put the ball in play, but still have power as well.
Yeah, Soto and Adams stood out to me when I looked at it this morning. Are you going to be getting to those Nationals today, Alex?
I think they're pretty expensive, but I do like the ownership being low. So I might sprinkle them in.
Okay. Anything else from these guys? I don't think we have anything.
I just got the lineups that I crunched for DraftKings before the show. I just got them sorted and stuff. And Washington's one of my higher owned stacks on DraftKings.
There you go. Good to know. Rays and Mariners. I am very intrigued to talk about this one. 4.9 run implied total for the Rays, 3.6 for the Mariners. Rays pretty sizable favorites here. Jalen Beeks looking to be the long man for Tampa, coming in after Castillo from what I've seen. Tommy Malone for the Mariners. How do you? I'm going to throw it to you, Alex. How do you feel about Jalen Beeks today, particularly on DraftKings? Although we can touch on Yahoo's $27 price tag. He is $4,400 today.
Yeah, I like that. Anytime I hear a pitcher with a price that low, I'm pretty interested.
Right.
And looking at his game log, it looks like he was priced at 6,700 the last time he pitched, which was a week ago. So it's kind of insane that they dropped him down all the way to 4,400. Not a great pitcher by any means. But Seattle has been one of those teams that's a little bit better to stack or to take a pitcher against because some of their better players are out of the lineup these days, and they replaced them with some higher strikeout guys. So I think that 4,400 is just way too low for Jalen Beeks.
Adam, I got 40-something% of him in my dummy crunch this morning. How do you feel about Beeks?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out exactly how much I just got in that early crunch, but I know it was a good amount. And it's not, it's like Alex said, it's not that I think he's a great pitcher. I also think that it's a downgrade that he's the long reliever again, because his last 2 outings, he actually started the game and we saw him throw 85 and 90 something pitches. Whereas now I think it's more likely you get somewhere around 70 to 75. But at that price tag, it really doesn't matter. He's got a good strike matchup. Again, no Domingo Santana in the lineup. Hopefully his defense actually can catch and throw the ball today, unlike Nikkei's yesterday, and he doesn't pile up pitches in the first couple of innings. But you're just taking such little risk on a $4,400 pitcher, especially because on DraftKings, guys like Kershaw and Bieber are really expensive. Whereas on Yahoo, I think Beeks is a little bit less valuable because of the relatively low pricing on Bieber and Kershaw, but on DraftKings they're really expensive. So if you're looking to get to those guys, spending around 16 to 17K total on pitching is pretty appealing, as opposed to even if you go to Aaron Sanchez, who we'll talk about and I really like is your SP2, you're still spending a lot more money and it's limiting what you can do for your bats.
Yeah, I don't know how I get away from a lot of Beeks, and I'm certainly not upset about it at all. I've played much worse pitchers at higher or at higher dollar amounts, so. This one feels pretty good. I'm going to go out on a limb and say neither one of us won any Tommy Malone with any sort of volume.
I'm good.
I think probably not, but on FanDuel, that price of 5,900 is a little bit low. So I could see some dart throws if you just needed a dirt cheap pitcher at FanDuel.
Okay. Not a lot standing out from an offense perspective. No ownership really going to the Rays on Yahoo or FanDuel. No real ownership going to the Mariners straight across the board. Little bit of ownership, though, coming into Tampa on DraftKings. Mostly wrapped up in d'Arnaud and Matt Duffy. A little bit more going to Meadows and Pham. Alex, what do you think of the Rays offense today?
I think, it's kind of an average lineup, about average power. They do get on base a little bit better than average. So, the park, you don't really love Tampa during the summer because it's indoors. So I think there's not a lot of reason to be excited other than maybe the price tags on DraftKings being super low, with Duffy being especially priced absurdly at 2,500 by a cash game in cash game consideration. On FanDuel and Yahoo, like I could see them as kind of a deep dart, like contrarian play.
Any Rays for you, Adam?
Some weird pricing in this game, but I don't love getting there. I think that Tommy Pham and Travis d'Arnaud are decent values. I think that Matt Duffy's obviously a good value at that salary, but he just doesn't give you a ton of upside at a position where there's a lot of power. And then on the other side, Tom Murphy, a catcher, obviously a lot of power. He's kind of appealing. And then Tim Lopes at 2,200 on DraftKings is a really cheap bat, but nothing that I love from this game.
Shouts to Chris Randone's dong pick yesterday. Tom Murphy, double dong against the chalk pitcher. Just brutal for most people except for Chris Randone, basically. Not a lot of other people were super happy there, myself included.
Yeah, dude. Apparently, sometimes it pays to go full contrary, and I was wrong.
It really does. It really does. We won't say anything about the strike him out, throw him out double play that got erased early to really submarine McKay, but I'll reiterate that was ridiculous once again. That's twice today. Only one thing to point out for me, Mike Zunino on Yahoo, flat minimum. He's a catcher with home run power. That's it. Reds and Padres, 59% chance to win for Cincinnati. Sonny Gray going for the Reds, just a hair under 10K on DraftKings, which is really the only salary that matters in the industry. Kyle Quantrill going for the Padres. God, this is so much fun. We've got Sonny Gray north of 20% ownership on Yahoo, only 7% on FanDuel, 18% on DraftKings. It would be weird for me to not go to Adam on this one. How do you feel about Sonny Gray?
I love him again. I expect that he'll be my highest owned pitcher out of not overall, but out of the group at the top with Kershaw, Bieber, himself, Strasburg, Ehrmann. He's got the second best strikeout percentage on the slate. He has the second best ground ball percentage on the slate. And that's something that I think really doesn't get talked about enough, because it's really unusual to find a pitcher that has really good strikeout stuff and a great ground ball percentage. Normally, when you get really good strikeout pitchers, when the ball's put in play, it tends to be hit harder because, it was a mistake, and you'll see them, give up more fly balls, give up more power. But Gray's been able to keep the home run per nine below 1 despite pitching his home games in a great home run park because of a 52+% ground ball percentage. This Padres lineup isn't as good for strikeouts as it has been for a lot of the season because you don't have Tatis and you don't have Franmil Reyes, but it's also not like losing those guys from the lineup makes it less appealing for Gray. There's still enough strikeouts. He has around 26%. You get Hedges in there also, which is another really high strikeout guy. No Hunter Renfroe, takes another big-time power bat out of the lineup. And then you get the pitcher too. So I still think it's a good spot for Gray, and I just think that he shouldn't be a whole lot cheaper than the other aces on this slate.
Alex, is it Gray day for you?
And I have to fire back here, Adam. I think that the first point is as well, if he's a ground ball pitcher, man, those are the worst for fantasy. Think about a Keuchel. I mean, Gray, he gets strikeouts, but that's not exactly how you rack up points in fantasy, by getting double plays or something. So that doesn't really make me excited about him. And the price is really high on DraftKings and FanDuel. And the lineup, based on my projections, strikes out considerably less than average. The pitcher, Quantrill, isn't even an easy K. He struck out 22% of the time over the season. So I just don't see auto strikeouts being there tonight.
Wait, but ground balls are better than line drives and fly balls. He's striking out close to 30% of hitters, but the other 70% when they put the ball in play, you'd rather it be on the ground. It just makes him a better pitcher.
He's a good pitcher, but limiting runs only gets you so far, and you can only be so good at it. his 2.98 ERA this year is like really good, and 3.6 xFIP. I'm not saying he's a bad pitcher, but it's just like you really you want like guys that strike out a lot of guys, and he does. But like tonight, the matchup's just not quite as good as I like in that regard.
There we go. Any interest from either one of you in Cal Quantrill?
Not really for me. Just a tough park. Not a ton of strikeouts in the Reds lineup. Quantrill has been better since coming back from AAA, but I think the price tag is increased enough to where it's just really tough for me to get to him.
Okay. Alex, any Quantrill?
Nah, just not a really good spot here.
Okay. I'll throw it right back to Adam again. If you were looking for an offense in this game, I can't imagine that it's the Padres. Are you looking to grab any bats in this whole game?
Machado's salary on DraftKings is still way too cheap. That's probably my only bat that I'm really interested in from the Padres. From the Reds, I think Suarez is an okay one-off. So is Aquino, obviously, with a ton of power. But neither one stands out as a great stack to me.
Cantor33 with a shout-out. Josh looks like he's watching his parents fight.
Well, I mean, I'm doing it on behalf of the viewers because I know they don't want us agreeing.
Exactly. You looking for any bats in this game, Alex? Reds, Padres, anything standing out to you? Neither team really getting a ton of ownership, although the Reds have a couple guys on FanDuel that are standing out, like Van Meter and Galvis.
Yeah, actually, like on my stacks tool, I think Cincinnati is one of the most overowned stacks tonight, so I'll probably not be really going there. But I do like Josh Van Meter at 2,600 at FanDuel leading off. That's a really good price, so I'd probably consider him in cash. San Diego with a 4-team total against a good pitcher, like that's not really going to move the needle for me.
Okay. This can't be. That has to be an error, right? Do I have a bug in my sheet? Can someone double check? What is Manny Machado's salary on Yahoo today?
8.
That's true?
Yep.
I just assumed that I hard typed in like a number into that cell. Yeah, so 32% owned Manny Machado on Yahoo. If you play someone other than him at third base today in cash, just stop playing DFS.
Yeah. That is an opportunity in tournaments, though, to just not have him against one of the best pitchers on the slate.
Yeah, 100% agree there. It would make more sense to me if he had a 1 in front of that 8. It might make more sense to me if there was a 2 there, more than just a single 8. That's something else. Wow. Yeah, Manny Machado. Go get him. I don't think we have anything else in this game. We'll keep it moving. Red Sox and Phillies. Got a coin flip game here. Like 5.5 runs on both sides. Brian Johnson for the Red Sox. Aaron Nola going for the Phillies. Neither pitcher getting a lick of ownership. You wouldn't expect Brian Johnson to. But for Nola's talent level, to see him get nothing, I think is interesting. But once you look at the price and the matchup, it's a little tough. Adam, any Nola for you?
No, I kind of forgot that he was pitching today. It's a really tough matchup, and he's a really good pitcher, but he's not in the same category as, Gray or Bieber, or even I think Kershaw after some recent adjustments in terms of strikeouts. And he's got a really tough matchup, and he's not really priced down. It'd be one thing if Sonny Gray is going to be 9,700 against the Padres, maybe make Nola like 8,500 against the Red Sox or something, and it's actually interesting. But I just can't pay more than Gray for Nola. And if I were looking for a low-owned guy, I'd rather go to Strasburg for basically the same price.
I can't disagree at all there. Nola is just trapped between two guys I think are significantly better than him on the slate today. So I don't see the appeal in attacking a Red Sox offense. Alex, any Nola for you? Are we missing anything?
No, I mean, it's one of the toughest parks and matchups in baseball.
I got nothing. And I'm very comfortable in saying that not a single one of us want Brian Johnson.
Nope.
Bingo. This one I'm really interested in getting some takes on. So the Phillies looks like 14th in ownership on FanDuel. It's pretty much just Hoskins. 10th on DraftKings. Again, pretty much just Hoskins. A little bit of Reynaldo. I really, really like the Phillies here, and it doesn't appear that they are getting any ownership. Alex, how do you feel about the Philadelphia Phillies today?
I absolutely agree with you. I mean, Brian Johnson's a below average pitcher. The park is really good. And the reason why maybe the ownership isn't there is because the prices are a little bit higher than the Phillies are most days. But I think it's probably like not the optimal like projected points lineup, but that ownership really makes it an appealing option tonight.
I'm going to have a staggering amount of Phillies tonight. I just know that that's about to happen. Adam, how do you feel about the Phils?
Yeah, I think it's a decent spot for him too. They were coming in as like a middle of the road stack for me. In that early crunch, obviously might go up a little bit because they do project pretty well. Hoskins obviously has forgotten how to hit a baseball, but that's factored into his price. So he's still a really good play. Realmuto and Harper are more expensive than usual, like Alex said, but it's not like it's a bad matchup. It's a good park for right-handed power in particular. So Hoskins, Realmuto, Segura, and then, even Scott Kingery is okay. So I think it's, maybe their full stack ownership is kind of low too, because it's not the most appealing 5-man. Like you end up having to either go lefty with Harper, which is fine, but also like Dickerson, or include someone like a Cesar Hernandez or something like that. So I think getting all 5 from that team can be kind of a weird lineup.
One thing I want to point out, $13 Rhys Hoskins in the leadoff spot on Yahoo, 34% ownership. You can couple him right with Manny Machado while you're building your cash lineup. Do we want any Red Sox bats targeting Aaron Nola, Alex?
I think so. I think, this is a really talented offense. It's a bad matchup for them because Nola has been above average this year. And the prices aren't really lighting any of my metrics up as far as points per dollar. But the ownership is as low as you're ever going to get Boston. And I think that in itself is probably worth some darts.
Yeah, no issues getting to, you wouldn't expect this, but some of the right-handers, Betts, Bogarts, JD, lefty power just dies in Boston. So if I'm going to take it, just give me the legitimate high-end talent at essentially no ownership, and I'll cross my fingers and hope it works. Any Boston out or Adam? I was getting through it all without screwing up the names. I was going to say something at the end, like, man, Lofty screws this up like 25 times a show. There's one.
I agree with Alex. Like right now, I'm not getting to a ton of Boston, but from a strategy standpoint, I think that it's a good spot, and I wouldn't be upset if I get more. Anytime you can get one of the most talented offenses in the league at low ownership, it's appealing. And then while they're not cheap, they are discounted relative to where they normally are. Getting JD for less than $5K on DraftKings, getting Betts at 5,100, Bogarts 4,800. They're lower than they normally are, so it is factoring in the tough matchup against Nola. So not getting to a ton right now, but I'm kind of hoping that changes a little bit before lock.
Perfect. And speaking of perfect time for everybody to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you know when we go live. Coming up immediately after this show. Same link. You don't have to change anything. You just sit here, wait like 90 seconds, and all of a sudden another show starts. You can't beat it. We've got dueling Chris's tonight. Chris Spags and Chris Randone, live before lock, Tuesday night edition, 6 p.m. immediately after this show. You get some Chris takes. The Chris I don't know what plural of Chris is, but we'll just call it that. That'll work. Mets and Indians. Indians 59% chance to win here. Steven Matz going for the Mets. Shane Bieber going for the Indians. Bieber getting a ton of ownership on Yahoo, 34%. Just north of 10 on both FanDuel and DraftKings. Alex, I'll throw this one to you. Bieber's got a heck of a price tag on all 3 sites. You going to be paying up for him?
Yeah, I'll give some tepid interest here. I think that the price tag of 11K on DraftKings and FanDuel and 50 on Yahoo, probably a little bit higher than I like on DraftKings and FanDuel. On Yahoo, 50 is probably easier to work it. It's a good pitcher, a 31% strikeout rate on the year. The matchup isn't that great though, with the Mets being a below average strikeout team. And I think that all adds up to like a good projection, but not one that's going to really make me excited to spend all my money on a pitcher.
Adam, any Biebs?
Yeah, I always get there, but it's just tough on the slate because he is so expensive, and the Mets really don't strike out a lot. If you go through the lineup hitter by hitter, it's just a lot of guys with average to below average strikeout percentages. The only guy in this lineup outside of Steven Matz that has a strikeout percentage over 23% this year is Juan Lagares hitting 8th. So like you get strikeouts from the 8-9 hitters. That's cool. But like Joe Panic's below 10%, Rosario's below 20, Alonso is 22, Conforto's just below 20, Ramos is like 14. It's just not a good strikeout spot. And Bieber does have the best strikeout percentage on the slate. He has the stuff to strike out anyone. So if I happen to have like a cheap stack or something and can find the money, he projects well. It's just that I don't have it as a great spot. So I'm not as interested in paying all the way up for him as I am on some other slates.
I expect to get a little bit. The number that the field has on DK looks pretty reasonable, and with Beeks being on the slate, it's just he's just going to kind of naturally show up. I'm not super excited about it. I don't love the matchup or anything, but ultimately he's Shane Bieber and he's good, and I'm willing to take the chance.
In that first crunch I did, I got like 12 to 13%, and we have him projected at 13%. So.
Yeah, I'm expecting the exact same thing. Do want to give a quick shout out. Ochi Blue asked, "Did Laffy get axed?" And Big Dog came in with the response of the day. Laffy is at the vape shop. So kudos to Big Dog for that one. You win, chat, for the next couple minutes. Any interest in Mets bats where they are currently the least owned team on all 3 sites? Alex, you going to get to the Mets. Are they today's Mariners by any chance?
Well, they very well could be, but I didn't have yesterday's Mariners, so I won't have.
Yeah, I know that feeling. Adam, any Mets?
No, I mean, like with it being such a big slate, like you can obviously make arguments for guys like Alonso and Conforto, but then you can make arguments for so many other guys at their positions that are better. So I don't think I'll get there.
No ownership really going to the Indians either. I think they're kind of an interesting secondary stack. You going to get to any Cleveland, Adam?
I think that they're definitely more interesting to me than the Mets are. Really tough lineup to strike out. Steven Matz struggles with power and struggles with speed. So I think that, getting to a little bit of Lindor or Mercado makes some sense potentially. I don't think I'm getting to a lot of them as full stacks though, but maybe just some one-offs with Lindor, Mercado, Ramirez.
Okay. Alex, you looking to any Indians bats? Matz has 16% ownership on DraftKings right now.
I think I like a few bats on DraftKings. I could definitely see making a mini stack at least, and I think that like if you want to full stack them up, that could be a good contrarian play. But nothing to get like too excited about versus it's a pitcher that's about average and Park that's just about average. So I think it's actually a pretty good spot. I'm surprised that Cleveland only has a 4.8 team total today.
Same. We didn't touch on it at all, but like I said, Matz has 16% ownership on DK right now. I greatly prefer the guy that is $100 behind him. I'm pretty confident that Adam does as well. I don't get the sense that I'm going to have much, if any, Matz, particularly because of Beeks at the bottom. Alex, do you think you're going to be getting to Steven Matz here?
I don't hate it, but as you said, we got a guy in Houston that you might be alluding to that might be much more palatable, and then some really good cheap options, including a couple guys that are still to come.
There we go. I don't have anything else here. I think we're good to keep it moving. We are done the 7-10 start games now. So on to a pretty chalky team today. The Atlanta Braves taking on the Miami Marlins. Braves right now 70% to win. Dallas Keuchel going for Atlanta. Alicia Hernandez going for Miami. Honestly, I was expecting to see some bigger numbers on Keuchel here, so I'm really curious to see where everybody stands. 15% on Yahoo, 21 on FanDuel, 14 on DraftKings. Hernandez not getting much love whatsoever. Alex, what do you think of Dallas Keuchel today? Not normally a monster strikeout guy, but the Marlins aren't normally an offense. So
It's a good way to put it. I mean, actually, Keuchel's strikeouts, he was really slow to start the year, but he really picked it up. He's at 19% over the season. And I think he's really justified getting signed back into the league after being unsigned for the first part of the season. So I think he's exceeded expectations a little bit, and he's got a cakewalk matchup today versus a Miami team that is significantly worse in power and strikes out more than your average team. So I think that I can definitely see how you'd end up on Keuchel today, given the prices.
Adam, Keuchel, not your normal cup of tea.
Yeah, I mean, I hate Keuchel, but I'm getting there today, especially if his ownership does stay in check like it is right now.
Yeah.
He's the kind of guy where if he starts to get up to like 30% ownership, I feel pretty comfortable walking mine back just because his ceiling isn't really that high. But, outside of the games where he just is really efficient and goes really deep. But from a strikeout standpoint, the ceiling's not that high. But right now, with the ownership he's getting, I'm fine being overweight on that just because I do have him as one of the better point per dollar projections. The Miami lineup, while it is heavily right-handed, does still have some strikeouts. His strikeout percentage is between 19 and 20%, which isn't great, but it's not the end of the world. So with his ownership how it is right now, I'm fine getting to more Keuchel than the field.
Yeah, I expect to be double that number if it's 14 on DraftKings. Even though it is a sea of righties for Miami, it's not like they have any power to deal with it. And Atlanta's park not exactly playing awesome for right-handed power anyway. So unfortunately, it's a Dallas Keuchel day, which rarely is fun, but I will take it. Any interest at all in Hernandez from either one of you guys, or is this just too tough of a sell against Atlanta?
I had a ton of him last time he played Atlanta, but I'm not getting there today. I don't think it being in Atlanta instead of Miami is a park downgrade for him, having to go outside in hot, humid weather. Also, just a more favorable hitter's park overall. Tough matchup, and also as you mentioned, we have Jalen Beeks. We even have Kyle Freeland at 4,200, who I hate, but I'll also roster. So if you're taking a risk on a cheap pitcher, why not just take the one that's like discounted 20%?
Let me tell you why not, man.
Ooh,
I got some arguments here.
Perfect.
Alicia Hernandez is not like an average pitcher. He's got a 24% K rate in the majors so far this year, over 30% in the minors. So I have him projected even better than 24%. So that would add up to be like a pitcher who should be like 7 to 8K at least, and he's 5,500 and 6,300 on DraftKings and FanDuel. And Yahoo also cheap, but probably not worth getting to. But the matchup versus Atlanta, I mean, they have a tough lineup to strike out, except when you get to the pitcher slot. Keuchel strikes out 69% of the time over the past season. Yeah, nice. And because he goes deep in games, I'm expecting to get 2 plate appearances here, which adds up to an extra strikeout for Hernandez probably compared to an average pitcher. And I think that when you factor that in, the strikeout shouldn't be too difficult to come by tonight for him. And I think most of the time Atlanta's gonna put up the runs, but if Hernandez has some positive variance, I could easily see him being in a winning
lineup. Okay. Speaking of Atlanta putting up runs, second in ownership on FanDuel, fourth on DraftKings. You stacking up Atlanta, Adam?
Yeah, I think that the ownership being as high as it is a little bit concerning, but I just think that a pitcher like Hernandez, while he does have good strikeout stuff, he's not a great pitcher overall, and he's got a terrible bullpen behind him as well. So I do think it's a really high upside spot for the Braves.
Yeah, I can't disagree. Particularly the first 6. Echeverria, not exactly the most exciting guy in the world. 3 different positional eligibilities across the industry. 3rd on Yahoo, short on FanDuel, 2nd in short on DraftKings. So that dude's just playing the whole infield today. Are you getting to the Braves today, Alex?
I think they're really popping up as far as points per dollar, but I'm concerned about the ownership being pretty high. So I think that most likely I'll be under the field, but I'll probably have some stacks.
I am in the same boat. I see them as a little bit overowned, and I'll probably come in a little light, but it's hard to ignore a 5.8 run implied total. I think it's safe to say that we don't have any interest in Marlins bats, but feel free to correct me. Anybody, I guess.
Brian Anderson and Garrett Cooper are good leverage bats because they have a lot of power, but again, with it being a 15-game slate, it's just really you're not getting as much leverage because even the popular pitchers just aren't that popular.
Right. Alex, any Marlins?
On Yahoo, 5 out of 8 batters are $7 or $8. So they're really good point per dollar plays, but it's pretty tough to conceive just like full out stacking the team.
Yeah, if Garrett Cooper and Machado are the same price, I'll just take Machado.
Seems reasonable.
Yeah, just guessing. I don't know. Cardinals and Brewers, another coin flip game. Roughly 5 runs for both teams. Michael Wacha for the Cardinals. Gio Gonzalez going for the Brewers. No real ownership going anywhere to either guy except for Wacha on DK, around 10% right now. Alex, are you going to be getting to any Wacha or Gio Gonzalez today?
I think that Waka is a good play on DraftKings, but not on FanDuel and Yahoo, just because 4,700 is dirt cheap price, and although he's a below average pitcher, like the matchup as far as strikeouts should be pretty decent versus Milwaukee. So I think there's a lot of risk, but very good point per dollar play.
Adam, Wacha, Gio?
I wasn't getting to much of either in my initial crunch. Maybe once I redo stuff because Milwaukee's lineup is less than good. There's no Mike Moustakas. There's no Trent Grisham. So replacing those guys with Ehrmann, Perez, and I guess Locane. But Perez being in there is below average bat. So it's not as scary a lineup for Wacha as it could have been, but he's still a pitcher that this season has allowed over a 200 expected ISO to both sides. He's allowed a 400 WOBA to right-handed hitters. Doesn't strike out a lot of guys. So right now, out of those cheap pitchers, I'm getting him less than Beeks or Freeman.
Okay. Ownership for both of these teams, relatively non-existent. It's all sort of average. They're in like the 9 to 14 range in terms of rank. We're looking at roughly 3 to 4% in the aggregate. The only guy that stands out to me at all across the board, Yasmani Grandal, $13 on Yahoo, 25% ownership. You just found your cash game catcher. Alex, you like either side of this game from an offense perspective?
I think Milwaukee. It's funny that us touting Waka, but I have to tout the Brewers offense.
Yeah.
Like they've been super popular over the past few days, but it looks like today they might be more contrarians because of the numerous options that you can get from other teams. So I think I might jump on them today as a contrarian play.
Adam?
Yeah, that's a pretty nice spot for Milwaukee. Still not as high of an implied run total as I would expect. But, Grandal, I think, is a really good point per dollar option. Christian Yelich is, I think, a really good tournament play because it'll be tough to prioritize him over some other outfield bats from a point per dollar standpoint. So, yeah, those two really stand out to me.
Okay. Yeah, I have the Brewers a little bit higher than where the public is. Don't expect to get a lot, but, the good bats that are still in the lineup, I have some interest in. I'd like the Yelich call. Probably going to go a little bit more overlooked today, and that's fine by me. I don't mind spending up for him. He's certainly worth the price tag. That's it for 7 o'clock games. Let's keep it moving. Cubs and Giants. 6-run implied total for the Cubs. 4.5 for the Giants. I actually thought this was going to be even bigger. When I woke up this morning, we didn't have the line because it's in Chicago, and that's relatively typical. Wind was pretty heavy at 6:30 a.m. Eastern time, so I didn't know how crazy the total would get to. This one still looks really good for Chicago. Cole Hamels and Tyler Beede. Beede getting no ownership. The more interesting thing to me is that Hamels is essentially getting no ownership. 6% on Yahoo, 8 on FanDuel, 7 on DraftKings. Adam, do you like Hamels here? Because I like him a lot more than the public does.
I thought that I would more than I do. Right now, I'm not really getting to him. When I did the podcast last night with EMAC, I thought that Cole Hamels would be like my guy at 7,800 on DraftKings, but not really getting there right now. Maybe that changes for me, but it's not a great strikeout matchup. It's not a great Giants offense either, though. But the thing that does concern me is that like Longoria, Posey, both still decent hitters, especially when you get them outside of San Francisco and into Wrigley. Not great strikeout guys. Pilar is decent at hitting too. So I think Hamels is okay, but if Keuchel's ownership stays as low as it is, it's tough for me not to just get Keuchel.
That was about to be my question, so thank you for answering that before I even asked it. Alex, Cole Hamels today.
I think it's about an average matchup for a guy who is I guess 23% strikeouts. I guess I should say average strikeout matchup because the Giants lineup is pretty weak in power. but it's going to be hard for him to rack up the strikeouts today. So I think there's a lot better options on today's slate.
You prefer Keuchel to Hamels?
I think as a point per dollar play, I do.
Okay.
On FanDuel, it looks like Hamels 500 cheaper, so I think that I probably still prefer Keuchel a little bit, but I can see Hamels.
Perfect. I have no interest in Tyler Beede. I'm going to assume that we both don't. Alex, do you care about Tyler Beede?
I think he would be if it was a different slate where there weren't good cheap pitchers, I would consider him. He's not that far behind guys like Freeland or Beeks, but I probably won't because he's priced up just a little bit more than them.
Adam Beede?
No, I just have a lot of trouble getting there.
Okay. Well, this one could be fun. So I'm going to you for it, Alex. 4th in ownership on FanDuel, 3rd on DraftKings, not exactly unowned on Yahoo. The Chicago Cubs picking up some ownership. How do you feel about their ownership relative to your top stack chances today?
I think that the ownership is manageable. Like, obviously, a team with 6.5 team total is going to be one of the highest on the slate. A really great spot for them. And I think that it looks like they're not getting really high ownership. They're not one of the higher on teams. So I think I'll be having some Cubs in my lineup today.
Okay. Adam, Cubbies.
Yeah, really good values too. Obviously a high upside spot with a 6.2 implied run total, but Javi Baez I think is a top shortstop value. I think Schwarber's one of the better values in the outfield. So is Nick Castellanos. Chris Bryant is less than 5K on DraftKings. So, I think if this were a smaller slate, you would probably get a ton of ownership on the Cubs. But with there being so many other spots to go to, I think that their ownership probably is manageable, and it's one of the spots that I like the most.
Ooh, okay. Well, I won't give my thoughts because I'm going to sound like the dummy in like 4 or 5 hours when the Cubs smash and I don't have them. So we'll just pretend like I don't have Cubs thoughts. To the Giants, Donovan Solano is getting ownership on FanDuel in the leadoff spot. Buster Posey is getting ownership on DraftKings because he's a $3,300 catcher. Nobody else is really getting any ownership. So their overall ownership is looking a little bit higher than it truly is. Is anybody getting to the Giants here? Alex.
No.
Ooh, Adam, go.
I was going to say, I'm not really. I think that there are good values. Like, I think that on DraftKings for cash games, you should definitely be considering Buster Posey. I think that on FanDuel, you should definitely be considering Donovan Solano. But for tournaments, it's still a decent pitcher in Hamels. It's not like the wind's blowing out at 20 miles an hour or anything like that. And the other guy that I really like that I would really like from the Giants would be Evan Longoria, but there's just a lot of opportunity cost at third base, so it's tough to prioritize him since I'm not getting to a lot of full Giant stacks.
Alex, Giants?
I think there's some good one-offs today, but it might be not the greatest idea to stack up the whole team. But the win is a nice asset here.
Yeah, I don't get the sense that I'm going to be having much Giants today. I don't get the sense that I'm going to be having much of this game at all, which is absolutely terrifying from a Cubs perspective. But a game that I will be having quite a bit of, Rangers and Angels. Monster total on this game, 12. Angels 55% to win. I don't know what Brock Burke is, but he's going for the Rangers. Jaime Barria going for the Angels. Angels currently the chalk stack on every site, I would imagine, certainly first on FanDuel and DK. No ownership at all going to Barria or Burke. Let's just start there, Alex. Would you be rostering either pitcher in this slugfest?
Well, I think it's at least worth pointing out, some information about Brock Burke. So he's a left-hander. He got promoted all the way from Double-A this year because he's had a 26% strikeout rate across the minors. Really good performance in Double-A. Struggled a little bit 2 starts in Triple-A. But so I guess all in all, I project him to be like a little bit below average pitcher. And the park is just really bad. So for pitching, really good for batting. So I think that's why we're seeing that 12-team total.
Yeah.
And I think that, it's a green light for the batters in this game.
I can't disagree. Angels are, to me, the number one team across the board. I completely agree with the ownership that's coming in. Probably get a little bit less Rangers, but I still want to be there. Adam, how do you feel about the offenses in this game?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, really good hitting conditions, some decent pricing too. Getting to Texas as one of my higher owned stacks on DraftKings, and also the Angels. So yeah, right there with you. Just two pitchers that I don't have a lot of confidence in, navigating these hitting conditions. And there's some pretty decent values. Reynaldo hitting fifth, I think, is one of the best second base options in any format. I think Shin-Soo Choo is a good play. And then we don't have an Angels lineup yet, but assuming that it's their normal lineup, Trout and Upton, of course, really stand out.
36% owned on Yahoo. Elvis Andrus is the flat minimum $7, looking like a decent option at shortstop. Shin-Soo Choo, 40% owned in the leadoff spot, just an $11 outfielder. Certainly some things to like here from Texas, at least from a Yahoo perspective. Alex, how do you feel about the Angels' chances of being a top stack relative to their ownership?
I mean, let's see here. They have a 6.8 team total, which is the highest on the slate, and they're an away team, so they get the extra half inning potentially, or extra inning, I guess, compared to if your stack goes off and they're the home team. So I think there's some really good factors here. I'm concerned that the ownership will be really, really high, though. So the reason why the ownership is looking a little bit lower is because you have guys like Luis Renfigo and Wilfredo Tovar at 1% ownership, basically. And Cole Calhoun, lefty. So not getting a lot of ownership, but like the main guys you want in this lineup are going to have really big ownership. So I'm a little concerned about that tonight.
Okay. Who are you more likely to have today, Adam? Rangers or Angels?
A lot of both, probably, but Angels.
Okay. I don't know if we have anything else to touch on here. Adam, favorite bat in this game?
Mike Trout.
That's not Mike Trout.
Reynaldo.
Okay. Alex, do you have a favorite bat in this game that isn't Mike Trout?
I gotta give Shin-Soo Choo and Andrews some love on Yahoo. They're just like so absurdly cheap.
Yeah.
They're definitely gonna be in my cash game lineup.
There you go. That's 4 or 5 different cash options that we've given, and I think they're all at unique positions, so you can't beat it. Let's see. 20 minutes to go on the show. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games to go. Man, I am pacing this out perfectly. I think we found a new deeper dive host. Astros and Tigers, 5.5 runs for Houston, 3.5 for the Tigers. Monster favorites here for the Astros. Aaron Sanchez going for Houston, Spencer Turnbull for the Tigers. Sanchez in the 20s in ownership on the 2-pitcher sites, not getting a ton of love on FanDuel. That price on DraftKings is just too low for this spot. Adam, how do you feel about Aaron Sanchez?
He will most likely be my highest owned pitcher on the slate. The way I see it is that there's a good chance that he's going to be better going forward than he has been in the past because of joining the Astros. His two-seam fastball usage has been down, but it is worth noting that if you look on Brooks Baseball, he didn't throw it at all in his first start with Houston. Then he threw it like 13%, and then he threw it like 22%. It might not be a coincidence that he threw a no-hitter and then had a good start and then had a terrible start, but we don't know what he's going to do with that pitch. What we do know is that he's got the best matchup possible against this Tigers team. He's still affordable. And even if you just say that he's like an average pitcher and ignore the underlying talent and the fact that he could very, very quickly improve in this organization, it's still a really good play. And then if you factor in the added upside of him, being on the Astros and them having the track record they do with pitchers like him, it just makes it even more appealing.
Alex, how do you feel about Aaron Sanchez, particularly at his ownership today?
Yeah, I agree with the Houston move being significant. His strikeout rate has jumped up from 17% to 22 since he got traded. So I think that 22 might be the more representative figure if you're trying to predict his performance today. And the Tigers lineup today isn't remarkable for how much they strike out, but they are a very bad lineup as far as run production. So I think that price tag of 6,800 on DraftKings and 33 on Yahoo is pretty good. And on FanDuel at 8,500, I think that's more where he should be priced. So I'm not super interested.
Completely agree. This one's really weird to me. I'm really anxious to get your take on it, Alex. There's no ownership really coming into the Houston Astros. Not on Yahoo, not on FanDuel, barely anything on DraftKings. They've got a 5.5 run total. Spencer Turnbull is solid enough, but still, this offense is different from a talent perspective. Is this an anti-optimizer play? Are they simply just overpriced, or is this just really not that appealing of a spot?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that is really interesting, and I think this is site specific on Yahoo. Like the heart of their order is all 25 plus, so that's a little bit too high.
Yeah.
On FanDuel, like they're also like 4K plus, so I think that they're going to be minus value for your lineup, but I think that maybe they're worth that risk. And then on DraftKings, I think they're more fairly priced, so I like them the most on DraftKings, but their ownership is also the highest of all three sites.
Adam, do you get to Astros here?
Yeah, I'm not really getting to him on DraftKings right now. I don't feel great about that. Turnbull is a decent pitcher, but it's not like he's a lights out guy, and he's definitely got a weak bullpen behind him. But there are 30 teams, and there's just other teams that I'm getting to a bit more right now.
I don't know how this is going to shake out for me. I like the price on Springer pretty much across the board. It is really crazy that the first 6 Astros are north of $20 and 7, 8, 9 are all the flat minimum 7 on Yahoo. You don't see that all that often. It wouldn't shock me at all if the Astros put up 15 today and were clearly the highest scoring stack, because it's not like the talent's not there. But 5 guys north of 4K on FanDuel, 6 guys north of 20 on Yahoo. It really is just a difficult fit. I don't expect to get there. And I think we're all pretty safe not having any Tigers.
Yeah, one of the lower team totals on the slate, so
yeah,
why not?
Adam, any Tigers bats standing out to you? Are you a big Jake Rogers fan?
I am not.
Oh, okay. Is anybody outside of his parents? Didn't think so. Keeping it going here.
Oh, why are you calling him out, man? He looks just like an average player in my model.
Sorry, Jake Rogers. Not my favorite Rogers, let's put it that way. Twins and White Sox, 5.8 run implied total. Twins, 4-1 for the White Sox, 67 chance to win for the Twins. Michael Pineda and Reynaldo Lopez going tonight. I'm very intrigued by this one. $44 on Yahoo, $94 on FanDuel, $8,900 on DraftKings. Sub 10% ownership across the board. Any interest in Michael Pineda against what is normally a fantastic strikeout matchup in the White Sox? Alex, talk to me about it.
Yeah, I think normally might be the key word there. Today, their lineup, I don't have projected to be a great strikeout matchup because, there's a few guys that are just a little bit above average and a few guys that are a little below average, so it all evens out. So I think that they're just much better spots to go to on today's slate, given that Pineda is overpriced for his 22% K rate. He should be more like 7.5K, and he's 8,900, 9,400 on DraftKings FanDuel. So I'm not really interested.
Adam, Pineda shares tonight?
He's just more expensive than I really want here. It's a decent matchup, but you're really paying for it. I would rather just save over $2,000 and get down to like Aaron Sanchez, or save $1,000 and get the Keuchel.
Okay. That was sort of my next question, Pineda or Keuchel. But for the second time regarding Dallas Keuchel, you have beat me to that question.
I just can't stop saying I like Dallas Keuchel. That's going to go great.
That does feel really good to me. I'm going to try to isolate that soundbite for the future. That'll be good. No ownership at all going to Reynaldo Lopez. Alex, any Lopez against the Twins here?
Nah, this is a really tough matchup. That's not good for strikeouts.
Okay. Adam, I'm confident that you don't want Reynaldo Lopez.
I do not want Reynaldo Lopez.
So, 8th in ownership on FanDuel, tied for 6th on DraftKings. Not getting too much on Yahoo. I really love the Twins here. 5.8 run implied total. Reynaldo Lopez on the hill against them, and they hit home runs like they're going out of style. Adam, you're going to be rostering any Twins tonight?
I think it's a good spot. I'm not getting to a ton of them right now. I think that the lineup looks pretty good, though. Having Kepler back, Kepler and Rosario stand out, and Polanco, because Lopez, the strikeout stuff's a lot better against righties than lefties. He gives up power to everyone, but if he's going to let you put the ball in play and you're Kepler, Polanco, or Rosario, there's a really good chance that you're having a big game. Cruz, of course, is just really good. Luis Arias doesn't strike out, so it is a really high upside lineup. And I think that maybe I get to them more as mini stacks than full stacks.
Alex, how do you feel about the Twins tonight?
I like them. I think that the ownership is off them because they aren't really going to make your projection pop. And they have a team total of above 6, which is one of the higher ones on the slate. So I think that they make a really nice tournament play.
I'm going to be there without question. I would be shocked if I'm not over the field by a pretty sizable margin. Adam, are you going to get to any White Sox here against Pineda? A couple guys stand out, but it doesn't feel like the best spot with that run total.
Yeah, I don't think so, just with it being as big a slate as it is. Obviously, they have some high upside bats, but none of them really grade out that well for me.
Yeah, Abreu, Tim Anderson, Abreu, Jimenez would be like the only trio that I'm really looking at. Wellington Castillo for $7 on Yahoo would be super viable if Yasmani Grandal wasn't so cheap. Alex, any White Sox bats standing out to you across any sites?
I think that on Yahoo there are a couple cheap ones like Wellington Castillo. On DraftKings, like the values are reasonable, but they're going to be a little higher on than I think they should be.
Okay. One quick plug before we get into the final 3 games. Alex's rankings are free today. If you want to get a little piece of the action of what we're offering, head to awesemo.com. I will drop the link into chat right now. But you can access Alex's rankings completely free today. No reason not to take us up on that offer. Costs you nothing. All you have to do is click on the link, get a little piece of what we have to offer today. Like I said, 3 games to go, 10 minutes, feeling good. Diamondbacks and Rockies. 59% chance to win for Arizona. Alex Young for the Diamondbacks. Kyle Freeland for the Rockies. Both guys only getting ownership essentially on DraftKings. Alex Young at 13%. Kyle Freeland at 21%. Adam, do you prefer one of these pitchers to the other? Do you have any issues with their ownership?
I'm getting more Freeland right now just because he's $1,600 less. I don't think he's good. I don't like the matchup, but it is a park upgrade for him going to Chase Field with the roof closed over Colorado. So that's worth mentioning. And then he's just a minimum priced pitcher. We already talked about why that's valuable with Jalen Beeks, but you have Freeland who's actually starting the game. And if he pitches well, at least has the ability to go deeper than Beeks will. So, that's a really, really big if, and it's not a good lineup against him, or not good lineup for him. There's 7 right-handed bats in the lineup. Not a lot of strikeouts. It's a really dangerous spot, but 4,200 is 4,200. For Alex Young, the only 2 righties in the lineup that you're really concerned about are Story and Arenado, and obviously it's a big park downgrade for them. Colorado as a whole really struggles outside of Coors Field. Affordable price tag, so I'm getting around like 10% Young.
Okay. Alex Young, Kyle Freeland, either guy for you?
I think Freeland is really standing out. Just given that price tag of 4,200, I think that because he pitches in Coors, his numbers are a lot worse. And his away starts, he's averaged like 21.5% strikeouts, I think, compared to his season average of 18. So I think that is a nice park shift. So I definitely like the points per dollar today for Freeland.
Okay. No ownership really coming into the Diamondbacks across the board. No one higher on any site than Wilmer Flores at 5%. I don't have a ton of interest in the Diamondbacks. No ownership really coming in on the Rockies side either. 7% for Arenado on Yahoo is the biggest number of anybody on any site. Adam, do you anticipate stacking either side of this game?
Not really. Right now, out of my top 150 lineups on DraftKings, I have a Colorado stack and 4 Arizona stacks.
Okay.
So not getting a lot of exposure to this game whatsoever.
Alex, either offense stand out to you?
Yeah, actually, I'm really interested in this game because it has a 10 over-under, yet only 1% ownership for both sides across the industry. So I think that there's a big edge there. And this is a spot where I'll definitely sacrifice projection to get in some low-owned bats that are on a good upside team.
Makes me happy to hear that. I might get a little bit of the Rockies, but I tend to get the Rockies on days they play away from Coors, and I tend to be sad with whatever portion of that I get. So, has to work one of these days, right? That's how this works.
Yo, guys, I got a breaking weather alert here in Cincinnati. Have you guys been following the weather there?
I know it's getting worse.
Tornado?
Well, it's just kind of like medium light rain, but it's a solid batch that's kind of pushing in the direction of the stadium. The bottom line is that it will be wet tonight, and with them having a game tomorrow at 11:30 versus the Padres, I think there is significant risk that this game gets postponed because it'd be easy to do a day-night doubleheader tomorrow.
Pay close attention to @Osimo Weather. It is our weather account from Osimo himself. We can get updates throughout the night. If anything changes, we will be getting them out there for you. Keep a close eye on that weather in the Cincinnati game. 2 to go. Oakland A's, New York Yankees, Homer Bailey versus Domingo Ehrmann. Homer Bailey getting no ownership whatsoever. Ehrmann getting no ownership whatsoever. Adam, will you be rostering either Homer Bailey or Domingo Ehrmann today?
I will not. Bailey's a guy that I've rostered some this year, but facing the Yankees isn't really the spot where I want to do it. And then Domingo Ehrmann has really good stuff, but I just don't think that he should be more expensive than, a Strasburg or Gray, or in the same pricing tier as Bieber and Kershaw. So also not a great matchup for him going against the A's, who don't strike out a ton. So it's just really tough for me to pay that salary.
Alex, Bailey, Ehrmann, can you do either one?
No, I think that Ehrmann maybe on the night slate, but he's so high priced that it's crazy.
Oakland bats, nothing really outside of the perpetually owned now Chris Davis, who is $2,900 on DraftKings, $2,400 on FanDuel, and $7 on Yahoo. If he doesn't start picking it up soon, he is not going to hit for the same average he normally does. Then we got the Yankees, essentially unowned across the industry. Really only Aaron Judge at 10% on DraftKings is an ownership to write home about. Alex, do you get to the Yankees here in a tough Oakland park?
I think so. I mean, one of the more talented teams. There are some really good value bats today with Aaron Judge at 4K on DraftKings and 16 on Yahoo. So I think you can make a pretty nice projected Yankee stack on DraftKings. On FanDuel, they're priced up a little bit more, so it's a little harder to get to. And on Yahoo, I don't really see any possible way to build a stack that would look good. Okay. But I think DraftKings looks pretty nice.
How's Oakland looking for you?
I think, tough matchup as far as the pitcher. Ehrmann being a little bit above average, and they're just not going to stand out on a nice slate.
Adam, Yankees, A's, anything looking good to you?
Just sprinkling some stuff in from this game, but nothing that really stands out. 2 relatively low implied run totals with the Yankees at 5.1 and the A's at 4.5. Not a great hitter's park. Looks like it's about 62 degrees. So just not a lot of stuff working in this game for me. I do think, though, that like Alex said, the DraftKings salaries on the Yankees are really, really affordable. Like 4K Aaron Judge and $4,300 Gary Sanchez is really cheap.
Yeah, Sanchez is the guy that I'm going to get north of. I'd be very surprised if I didn't. Final game, one reminder, Live Before Lock coming up immediately after this. Same link, Chris Spags, Chris Randone, dueling Chris's for an hour. Can't beat it. Dodgers and Blue Jays, the final game. 74% chance for the Dodgers to win here. Clayton Kershaw going against Sean Reed-Foley. We can pretty easily skip Sean Reed-Foley because for some reason he's $8,300 on DraftKings. So that makes no sense. Kershaw, $53 on Yahoo. Heavy chalk. 12-2 on FanDuel. 12K on DraftKings. Alex, what do you want to do with Clayton Kershaw here?
I think he's my highest projected pitcher tonight. The park is nice this time of year in LA. He's been pretty great this year, 3.4 xWHIP, but not as elite as we're used to. So I think I'm also encouraged by the Blue Jays 3.5 total. They also strike out at a good clip with their projected lineup that I have. and I don't think that really justifies a 12K price tag necessarily, but I don't hate it.
Just got a note from EMAC. Both teams in the Cincinnati game have Thursday off, so certainly increases the opportunity to do a doubleheader tomorrow with a rest day following.
I think that scheduling is like really important for determining whether a game gets postponed. It's just like how patient are they willing to be.
Absolutely. Adam, what do you want to do with Kershaw tonight?
I like him a lot. The issue is just the price tag and what can you get into your lineups with him. But with Jalen Beeks and Kyle Freeland offering minimum priced SP2s, I think that on DraftKings and Yahoo, it's not that difficult to get to Kershaw. And I am optimistic about his strikeout numbers going forward. For the season, he's at about 26.5%, which is good, but not great, especially for his price tag. But if you go on to Brooks Baseball and look at his movement on his pitches month by month, he's averaging like an extra 1.5 inches of depth on his slider now. And that's going back to about the start of like middle end of June. But if you look from the start of July, he's made 7 starts. He has a 33.5% strikeout percentage with a 26.5% whiff percentage on his slider over that month and a half, compared to early in the season up until the start of July, 22.5% strikeout percentage and a 17.5% whiff percentage. So he has had some favorable matchups over that time that could be increasing those numbers a bit. But the more depth on his slider, more swinging strikes, more strikeouts. I'm pretty optimistic about his strikeout numbers going forward. And then you're already getting someone that has gone at least 6 innings in every single start this season. So I do really like Kershaw here. It's just a matter of how many lineups can I get him into.
Everybody loves an extra 1.5 inches of depth. Dodgers 6th in ownership on FanDuel, 2nd on DK, although a lot of it is just simply concentrated to Jock Peterson and Max Muncy. Adam, let's close it out with these Dodgers. How do you feel about them as a stack?
I was getting a lot of them early in the show, and then I plugged our newest or updated ownership into my spreadsheet. Now I'm not getting much at all, which terrifies me. But Jock Peterson's batting 8th, so that makes the lineup a little bit. Oh. Yeah, that makes the lineup a bit less appealing as well. You get Chris Taylor back at 4,900. That's a spot that I'm not really excited about getting to. For a Dodgers lineup, they made it about as unappealing as they possibly can.
Alex, how do you feel about the Dodgers here?
I think that the ownership is super, super high. As you mentioned, Jock is batting 8th, and he was projected to be one of the high-owned players, though, so maybe he'll go down. So I think that I don't really see much reason to go there, but on the night slate, I'll probably be all over him.
Okay. I think we're all probably in an agreement that we're not looking to target bats against Kershaw. Alex, do you want anything from the Blue Jays?
No.
Adam?
Nope.
All righty. Top stacks. Adam, go.
The Nats, and I'm actually getting a lot of Red Sox now with our new ownership.
Alex, top stacks.
I'll go with Philadelphia and Minnesota. Oh, actually, hold on. I'm going with all of them because you guys, I've been getting some feedback. People are saying, why didn't you recommend this as your top stack? And there's an easy solution to this problem.
I was going to recommend Twins and Phillies. They are my top 2, so I feel like I'm just hopping on your coattails. I do like the Angels. They're already chalk. So I will give the Rockies as a team that is going completely underowned that I will have. That's the best I can do. 601. I did close enough as far as I'm concerned. I think it is Spags and the 2 of you guys tomorrow, but immediately after this, it's Spags and Randone. Do you guys have, Alex, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Just good luck everyone tonight, and thanks for watching.
Adam, anything?
No.
Yeah, I should have known better. Thank you guys for joining us. Stick around on this link. Live Before Lock will be starting up immediately following this, so listen to my dope beats, and we'll talk to you later.
All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Awesemo.com Live Before Lock Show. We got ourselves a 15-game slate, got ourselves one YouTube video link for you guys. So we're here right now in the Deeper Dive stream. And I'm Chris Spags, joined by my fellow Chris, a fellow Chris in arms, and of course, the Tom Murphy whisperer, Chris Randone. Take your victory lap right now for yesterday. How are you feeling after that big call?
Man, I'm feeling good, man. You know, just sometimes you just feel it. You gotta express how you feel. Tom Murphy was on my mind all day.
Just running through your mind, a sexy Tom Murphy in a bikini, just imagining him being like, ooh, very appetizing going against Brendan McKay.
Man, dude, hey, I put it out there for a while, so I tried to warn people. It was happening.
It was happening, and it is happening again today right now. And one place it's really happening is FantasyDraft.com, because that is the home of Rake-Free Daily Fantasy. And Rake-Free Daily Fantasy is here, but only on FantasyDraft.com. Now you can play your favorite contests Rake-Free on FantasyDraft, where 100% of the entry fees are paid out to winners. For a limited time, FantasyDraft is offering a free 7-day trial on your first $1,000 in Rake-Free entries. So go right now to FantasyDraft.com. Get your 7-day trial with the promo code AWESEMO, AWESEMO. Get your first $1,000 in rake-free daily fantasy. Chris, you're playing a ton. You play also a lot of high-stakes games. You ever notice how much rake is coming off when you actually do have a good tournament win?
Oh, yeah. I mean, all the time. It's one of the main things you look at as far as the prize pool and the rake. So, I mean, what Fantasy Draft does, it's unique, it's different. And, I mean, for anyone who factors that in, definitely should check it out.
Yeah, it's a good way to save money, good way to build bankroll as well, competing in less shark-infested waters on FantasyDraft.com. So go over there right now, go to FantasyDraft.com, and use that promo code AWESEMO for your first $1,000 and rake-free entries. All right, Chris, so we have ourselves one of those fun pitching slates today where we have some chalky pitchers, but they are not good ones, at least by the traditional sense of what we expect from pitchers here. The chalk pitcher of the slate today right now is looking like Aaron Sanchez, who is an Astro, so that's always going to make him inherently better here. He'd be pretty highly owned on DK, less owned everywhere else. He's a really good value on there going against Detroit. How are you feeling about Aaron Sanchez, given that he's the chalk? And are you going to advocate for any Detroit hitters today going against them?
Given right now what I'm seeing with the weather, I'm kind of now liking Sanchez a little bit more in my lineups, and this matchup is just too hard to pass up. You know, it's interesting because I think Adam mentioned it earlier. Aaron Sanchez is definitely a better pitcher with Houston. I think that's also because of the run support, and I think that gives him more confidence on the mound. But here, I mean, he's going to be facing a team that's the third highest strikeout team against righties. Detroit does not scare me, and that 6,800 price point is just too nice to pass up.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think the points too that they made, his strikeout rate is up to a little bit above league average. He's a guy who's been down under league average for the most part this year. And I think too, your point is pretty well founded, where I think if you're pitching for Toronto, especially that Toronto lineup earlier in the year where they just weren't able to get much run production going. Now you have Houston, you could be a little more aggressive attacking the plate, and that should theoretically lend itself to more strikeouts today. So I am going to be over the field on Aaron Sanchez. I feel comfortable with it. I think too, you know, we could talk about the reasons why a little bit, and maybe that might be worth you just going on to soapbox for a second here. There were some things with Brendan McKay yesterday that you saw and that were pretty obvious in terms of the power that he gives up to right-handed bats. Whereas Sanchez is a guy who really does keep the ball down pretty well on the year, not giving up a ton of home runs, just slightly above league average there. So, Chris, when you're looking for a chalk pitcher, is there something, and I guess is there a lesson to take from yesterday with Brendan McKay? What do you see where you're like, okay, this guy is not one I want to match the field on when they're that chalky?
I mean, one of the biggest things yesterday with McKay was he had crazy reverse splits. I mean, on the road, he was a completely different pitcher. At home, he struggled mightily, specifically against righties. And we looked at a Seattle team where it's better to look at sometimes the sample size over the last month or two, because there's a lot of changes throughout the year with the lineup. And over the last 2 months since the trade deadline, I mean, they were having a plus 300 ISO as a team and a 400 WOBA against left-handed pitching. So Brandon McKay hasn't proved anything to us yet. And yeah, I mean, the price was nice and the matchup you might have thought was nice, but based on the last 2 months and the last, 6 series from the Mariners, they've actually been putting up runs. So I think you got to look at more than just the matchup and just the team and kind of scratch beneath the surface.
And I think too, some people may be afraid of playing a chalk pitcher again after that happens yesterday. But on paper, he did look like a good play. But as Chris mentioned, there were some real caveats there. Seattle, one of them being that they really have raked against left-handed pitching on the year, and they have some guys there. I mean, Austin Nola being in that lineup, Tom Murphy, your guy, a lot of power as well. So like when you have power bats there, that is a reason why you can go the other way. Whereas for Detroit, I mean, look, if Aaron Sanchez gets blown up today, not impossible. It is MLB DFS, but Detroit has what? Let's see. One hitter over 200 ISO in their lineup, Brandon Dixon, and he also strikes out at a 33% clip, so you could probably get by him. Nobody in their lineup over a 100 WRC plus in the last year and change going up against right-handed pitching. So it's not the same situation today, and I'm pretty comfortable playing Aaron Sanchez above the field. Whereas Brendan McKay yesterday, maybe there were some reasons to get pause there. How about another crappy pitcher, Chris, and Kyle Freeland, who's also going to be going into Arizona today, getting some decent runs against him, 5.6 implied runs going against him. He's also going to be pretty chalky on SB2 sites as well. Reasonably priced, getting a park upgrade, but I don't like his spot here going against an Arizona team who hits lefties really much better than they hit righties. How are you feeling about Kyle Freeland today as also a chalk play?
I mean, yeah, he's that low price point, but I mean, he's given up 2.3 home runs per 9. He has a 23% home run to fly ball rate, and you're going into Arizona where it's going to be hot and humid, and you're facing a team that's actually pretty solid against lefties. There's just no logic here behind this. I'd rather pay $200 up more and pay up for actually Beeks at $4,400 rather than paying $4,200 for Freeland.
Yeah, I mean, Beeks is the projected long reliever, and I'm with you on that. I think he projects slightly better as well. And Freeland, I get it. I mean, he's cheap there, and he's getting a park upgrade technically. The roof is closed there, so that should make it a little better for him. And on the year, that has been a park that is limiting production pretty well in terms of hitting. But I think his splits too, I mean, he's given up a 187 ISO, which is going to be helped out a bit by being in Colorado. But I think there are enough hitters here. Like Carson Kelly's been one really almost an aberration level quality hitter against left-handed pitching. Guys, a 313 ISO. You have guys like Eduardo Escobar, Ketel Marte, both those guys over 213. Nick Ahmed can also hit lefties pretty well, pretty under the radar at that. I think Arizona is actually a pretty interesting stack. And the top stacks tool, we have them as being a better chance to be a top stack in their ownership right now. So I'd rather go the other way. And I think Kyle Freeland is one to target against. And Chris, since you're riding that hot hand, are you going to go with any Arizona going against Kyle Freeland today?
I like Arizona a lot. I like Wilmer Flores. I like Ketel Marte. And I love Carson Kelly. He actually crushes left-hand pitching. So there's a lot of power in this lineup. I even like Christian Walker. I mean, to be honest with you, it's not a good matchup for Freeland. And I don't really see where he's going to get the strikeouts at. And these bats have actually been better often than not. And Peralta even hits lefties. So, yeah, I mean, we might see a Dom pick from this game. I'm not sure yet.
Ooh, all right. Just forecasting that one. Look, when you do what you did yesterday, you can call your shots like Babe Ruth. And I agree. This is a spot where, I mean, it's a high team total as well. Like that is a really high team total for a chalk pitcher. And I would not feel comfortable with it. And I am under the field and going to stay under the field on Kyle Freeland today because that's not a spot I'm trying to go to. We do have some good pitchers though, Chris, even though we're talking about a lot of the crap guys who are going to be pretty highly owned. And one of them we should hit on who has some weather concerns right now is Sonny Gray. The weather in there apparently moving fast for their game against San Diego. It looked like a really good spot for him. I was going to be above the field on Gray. Now I'm off of them entirely because Alex made some good points about it. They could just play a doubleheader tomorrow. They have an early game already scheduled, so it really wouldn't be that hard. How are you feeling about the weather with Sonny Gray, and are you playing him or are you just avoiding him right now?
Man, this weather's scaring me because he's actually one of my highest owned pitchers on tonight's slate. Love the matchup, love the price point. His price point doesn't make sense. You got Wade Miley at 11.2K last night, and you have Sonny Gray still under 10K. It's just the price point's too good to pass up. Regardless of the changes of the lineup, there's not a lot of power in this lineup outside of Machado and Renfroe. So, yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, the weather's scaring me now, and I'm looking to see if I'm going to be able to pivot or pay up a little bit because I have Sonny Gray in a lot of my lineups.
Yeah, it looked like a really good spot for him. And he is always, of course, one of Ship My Money's favorite pitchers, which, does give him a bit of credibility in my mind. But the numbers as well, just overall looking really strong for him on the year with a 3.6 xFIP, 1.1 whip, and a 29% K rate. And those numbers do look good against San Diego, who is not terrible. I mean, they're striking out a bit less now. They have no Franmil Reyes in there, no Tatis as well, who does strike out above league average. But it's not a perfect spot for Gray. So I guess I would have been there anyway. But I think maybe it now could be a safe thing where getting away from him might be the wise move because the weather there does look bad. And it looks like it's come on as being bad pretty fast in a way where I don't know what our chance of postponement is right now on the site. I might not have it updated yet, but we'll keep you guys updated.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
With Tatis and Reyes out of the lineup, would you rather them be out of the lineup or in the lineup with higher strike side or them out of the lineup with less power?
It's a good question. I think for a pitcher like Gray, you want the strikeouts because he does get really good ball movement. He's got an 11% swing strike rate. He can strike guys out. Whereas if you had like an Aaron Sanchez type, I think you just don't want the power bats in there. So you just want guys who'll give him some extra strikeouts and I mean, or rather have less strikeouts, but just give him an easy ground ball rather than risking getting a 2-run home run. So I think for Gray, like I'd rather have those strikeouts in there, but yeah, I think the weather is just enough where I love Sonny Gray, but it's not going to be a great day for me today, it looks like.
Agreed.
All right, let's talk about, let's see, ownership-wise. So Clayton Kershaw is going to be pretty chalky on Yahoo, it looks like. He's a guy who has been really good on the year, actually, improved. Again, on the deeper dive, Adam pointed out his strikeouts have been up a bit on the year. Also, a very low xFIP, one of the lowest on the slates. In a spot here going against Toronto, who has improved quite a bit. They do have some power bats in that lineup, but it is a pitching-friendly park, even though it is a hot day here in LA relative to our standards. But the lowest implied total on the slate for Kershaw. Kershaw's ownership on DK actually has come down a bit. It's pretty reasonable. On Yahoo, though, he's still looking pretty chalky. How are you feeling about Kershaw today, and are you willing to pay that premium price for him?
Oh, man, I like him. It's just he's a lot, and it kind of takes away from what I want to do with my roster construction. So I have a little bit of him. I'm under the field, and that's just specifically based on price. But if I were able to fit him in more, then there's no doubt. I mean, the matchup's great. Toronto, there's a lot of strikeouts in that lineup. He's at home. The biggest thing is that he's actually lasting 6 or 7 innings, so you're getting that quality start. He's limiting runs. He's limiting power. The strikeouts are there. I mean, yeah, he looks like he's kind of recovering and back in true form a little bit.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, I don't mind him on Yahoo if you're going to come close to the field on that where he's going to be chalky. And I do think on DK, the 15% ownership for Kershaw or a little bit above that does seem kind of low relative to what he can do. Because this spot for Toronto, as Chris mentioned, there are some strikeouts there and just really not a lot of power on the year. I mean, a 180 ISO, but the projected lineup is actually a little bit worse than that. And Sean Reed Foley should also offer up some free strikeouts here going into an NL Park here. He's probably going to have some, I mean, he's not done much on majors in terms of hitting, but one would assume his strikeouts will be pretty high. So I like the spot for Kershaw. I don't mind going him here, but the price is hard because you're trying to afford a lot of quality bats today. Chris, you have a weird pitcher who you're going to today because I know you like to dig deep. Obviously, Jake loves talking about your infamous Jason Vargas pick or famous, depending upon your worldviews. Anybody fit that criteria for you who you're going to get weird with today at pitcher?
Yeah. Going back to that Arizona game. Looking at it right now, I'm still on board with going with Alex Young at 5,800 on DK. And I'm kind of flirting with him on FanDuel too, but I kind of like Alex Young at home against the Rockies.
Is there anything that's putting you there? I mean, no Charlie Blackmon in the lineup is going to make that a bit easier. Story and Arenado, though, do hit lefties well enough where they would give me some concern. Both guys over a 146 WRC plus versus left-hand pitching going back to last year. What's putting you on Young overall?
I think the biggest thing is there's a few guys in this lineup that are striking out over 24%, and you have the pitcher slot. So if you're able to, limit run scoring, and you have a guy who's going to last about 6 innings, and you get a couple strikeouts, and there's not that many runs. I mean, he's not only hitting value, but he's more than affordable. And based on those pitchers down at the bottom tier, looking at it, I kind of trust him the most in that home matchup against a team that is prone to strikeouts. And if you look at Story and Arenado, they do crush lefties. They have a lot of power, but then at the other side of the token too, they do strike out a lot. So it's something where it's a matchup that I kind of want to exploit.
All right, yeah, it seems fair. And Alex Young is a guy, too, who has limited power pretty well on the year, not giving up. Well, the barrel ball rate's 7%. That's pretty average, but not a ton of home runs, a 3.4% home run rate. The xFIP does seem like maybe he's due for some worse things to come with a 5.2 xFIP, but a low 1.1 whip. I mean, if he survives the worrisome bats or if he survives Story and Arenado, and the park is going to help him out as well, I could see Alex Young being there. And projection-wise, too, he does look like a decent value. Question in the YouTube chat asking about the Sonny Gray pivots, and this is probably something that you're going to be thinking about with your lineups, Chris. Who would be the pivots at that price point for Sonny Gray who you want to go to? We have Aaron Nola, who's a little bit more expensive. Strasburg, slightly more above that. And then cheaper, we have Archer and Pineda. Any of those guys sound like somebody who you want to go to? Because none of them is really in a perfect spot.
No, but if I'm pivoting, if I have the extra 300, I'm going to go to Nola. There are some great strikeouts in that lineup, and especially at the bottom of the order for Boston, I could see Nola kind of really taking advantage of that. But in an interesting side too, I kind of like Archer, just because he pitches. He's going to give you that duration of time throughout the game where he's going to pitch 100 pitches. He does get his strikeouts. The only question is if he could just limit those runs and not give up much power. I mean, it's a perfect storm where he's going to help get you that. But even when he's giving up these 3 or 4 runs, he's still somehow hitting value and getting the projected point total that he needs to get. So I would probably save the 400 and go with Archer.
Yeah, I mean, he does have a really good strikeout numbers on the year. It's 27.1% K rate. The lefty power, though, is really where you're going to worry against this Washington lineup. He's given up a 219 ISO going back to last year to lefty hitters. And you have Eaton in there who's been really raking the ball recently. Still not a big power guy on paper, but has started to hit for more power over the last couple of weeks. Juan Soto as well as Drupal Cabrera. But you're right, the strikeout ability for Archer is there. I mean, the weather in Pittsburgh a little bit cooler today than yesterday. We saw Washington went off yesterday in that hot day in Pittsburgh, down under 80 degrees today, and still a good hitting park though. But yeah, I could see going to Archer today. Strasburg too in the same spot. I don't mind. I mean, Pittsburgh not a great strikeout team. They do hit righties pretty well, but Strasburg has had really good strikeout ability on the year, a 29% K rate, missing bats pretty well with a 13% rate, and he does generally pitch deeper into games. Any Strasburg interest at all for you? Because he's a guy who's just kind of forgotten today, ownership-wise, it looks like.
Yeah, I think I would just base the Strasburg matchup solely based on the fact that he's not really getting known. So if he goes off, you have a pitcher that does have the potential, and if he gets there, he gets there, and you have him. But outside of that, he also is someone that does draw red flags for me. And I think Adam mentioned it earlier, is that he's a great pitcher, but he's not elite right now. And so these types of inconsistencies are a cause of concern to pay that price point. And the only thing I could also say is that Pittsburgh has been struggling lately at the plate. And if that's something that's going to continue, what better pitcher than to take advantage of that? So it's really tough, but he's not projecting as much as I like maybe Gray, or maybe if at that point, Kershaw and things of that nature. So it's tough.
Yeah, from a value perspective, I mean, really none of these guys project terribly well. None of them over that 2x value threshold you want to see a pitcher. Even Clayton Kershaw, who is the best raw points pitcher on the slate, only a 1.9x value according to our projections at Osmo.com. You can also get at Osmo.com/join if you use that promo code live before lock. Get half off your first month on the ownership projections and the player projections, and just get right in there right now. Actually, I think today the player projections are free. So if you go to the site right now, you should be able to see them. I think we're giving a preview today. You actually use them yourself. If you happen to have your own Fantasy Cruncher membership, go check them out and go support our social media team on the @Osmo_com Twitter handle, because they're the ones who are deciding that free content every day here. Let's go back to the cheap pitching guys, because I think these are probably the ones that people are going to have questions about. Jalen Beeks is one we're going to need to talk about here, because he's getting pretty much a good amount of hype. We talked about him as a pivot to Kyle Freeland. He's going against Seattle in the same spot here, a lefty pitcher going against Seattle, which did not work out for Brendan McKay yesterday. But Jalen Beeks giving up less power overall. They just a 150 ISO overall, 155, excuse me. And not as much of a power concern, but also not as good of a strikeout pitcher. But at that price, you probably don't care that much. How are you feeling about Beeks relative to the field? I don't think we have an ownership number on him, but one's got to assume you're going to be 15 to 20% owned.
Yeah, so this is a different matchup for Beeks as compared to McKay yesterday. And outside of the K per 9, Beeks has better numbers than McKay did yesterday. And McKay had a smaller sample size, and that's why I trust Beeks more. I mean, he's limiting less than 1 home run per 9 on the year. And he has a better than below average of 10% home run to fly ball rate. And he's pitching in a pitcher's ballpark. He does pitch good at home. There are strikeouts in this lineup, specifically Broxton and Lopes and Vogelback and things of that nature. So, looking at this, it's almost as if the complete opposite of how I felt from yesterday. I feel way more confident in this matchup than I did McKay. And I think that's just because of the command and control of Beeks rather than McKay in his pitches. So the only question here is, you're paying $4,400 for a long reliever. How long does that long reliever stay in for? Does he stay in for 3 innings, 5 innings? Where's his pinch count going to get at? We saw McKay yesterday. He was already at 58 pitches, I think, in the first 2 innings, 3 innings. So that's the only concern. But outside of that, I mean, a lot of strikeouts in this lineup, and it's a completely different feeling than what I had from yesterday.
One thing I'm realizing too, actually, so no Vogelbach in the lineup today. Just saw that the confirmed lineup came out. Tom Murphy is in as well as Omar Narvaez. So both catchers are in. One of them is DHing. I would presume Tom Murphy is DHing. Does that give you any more concern here? Because your boy Murphy is in there, and he's been obliterating left-handed pitching. Now his numbers are up to a 342 ISO after that big performance yesterday. Any concern at all? You don't want to go against the love of your life from yesterday, do you?
There's nothing wrong with Murphy. I mean, I would say he's a good one-off today. And I mean, but he does strike out over 34% of the time on the season. So he has the second highest strikeout rate in that lineup. Keon Broxton's almost 50%. So you want to talk about, guaranteed strikeouts. I mean, that's a high possibility, especially on Broxton's case. But Murphy, I mean, I'm not going to go against him. I will say this. I do have him in a few one-offs. But once again, as a collective unit, Thomas Murphy and Austin Nola have hit home runs in 3 or 4 straight games now, each of them. So that regression's got to come, just like the Nationals. They can't be scoring double-digit runs every single game. It's just not going to happen. So to continue this consistency it would be crazy, but I just don't see that happening against someone who limits power so well in Beeks. And it's unfortunate because if it wasn't the case, I would probably be on the Seattle Mariners again.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you look at the numbers for Nola and Murphy, those two guys you mentioned, as well as Lopez. I don't know. I assume it's Lopez, but I don't know if he's got an accent on there. But a 250 ISO for Lopez, 342 ISO for Murphy, 404 ISO for Nola. These are all somewhat limited sample size, especially for Lopez and Nola. But I mean, these are guys who do have some power there. But the hope is that Beeks can keep it under control, under a league average home run rate on the year for Beeks as well, a 2.4% rate. So not getting barreled, a 6.5% clip on that. Decent under league average home run rate as well. So I agree with you. I think Beeks is in a decent spot here, but seeing Murphy in that lineup, though, gives me a little pause because if it were Narvaez just a catcher, I would have felt a little better at that lefty-lefty spot. Anybody else super cheap you're getting so far in your crunches? Because I think for me, I really am trusting Beeks a lot in that tier. I do have some Eliezer Hernandez, which I don't love, but he does project well for us, and he has shown that he can get it done versus Atlanta. Did it just about 10 days ago, but he scares me a bit. You landing on Eliezer Hernandez at all in Atlanta?
I have a couple shares of him, and I think that's just because, and I hate to say it, but I'm not trying to be recency biased, but that's just the case. I mean, he's done it once before against this team, so the question, can he do it again? There are strikeouts in this Braves lineup, so his price point and his strikeout potential. I think Alex said it best. I mean, he had over 30% in the minors, and I mean, right now it's upper 20s. So the strikeouts are there. The question is, does he leave the ball out over the plate or what happens? So yeah, that's kind of, I don't disagree with it. I think at 5,500, especially on DraftKings, you're looking for an SP2. I don't think there's anything wrong with rolling out a few shares of Hernandez.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I mean, it's obviously going to be a tougher part than that matchup last time, which was in Miami, but he has shown an ability. As Chris mentioned, Alex, I think, said he was over a 30% K rate in the minors. He's only been at a 24% K rate in the majors, but Alex actually expects that to keep moving upwards. I mean, I think he said he valued him as like a $7,500 to $8,000 pitcher, and he's only at $5,500 on DK today. So I don't mind getting there. And, with my randomness settings, I did get there above the field. But Atlanta, just a power hitting team, and the splits for Eliezer are kind of scary versus lefties. He's been getting smoked. 7.05 xFIP, a 1.7 whip going back to last season. And obviously, you do have those lefty hitters in Atlanta's lineup. So I have exposure both ways, but I agree. I think it does make sense to get some Eliezer in there. How about Dallas Keuchel on the other side? Because he's a guy who's going to be pretty well owned on FanDuel. Also have some decent ownership elsewhere. Not a great strikeout guy. Also got blown up by Miami in that same game about 10 days ago. But he should be better here, one would think. How are you feeling about Dallas Keuchel?
God, this is the one thing I can't put my finger on, how I feel, because I feel like I'm going both ways. It's like I don't trust Keuchel, but then there's a lot of upside here, and there's really not much power to worry about. And so I can't really put my finger on it. But he is priced so cheap that, for me, I think I kind of like it, especially now with Gray being out. If I can pivot and maybe bring up some of those pitchers that I had in the 4,000 and bring them up to maybe like Aaron Sanchez, Keuchel makes it more interesting now for me because I can pair Sanchez and Keuchel together. But, I mean, they don't have much power. There's strikeouts in the lineup, and the only thing is, once again, it's like the complete opposite of Hernandez. He got to the Braves last time, but the Marlins got the Keuchels. So, what to do here, I'm not sure.
Yeah, there are some better hitters in Miami's lineup. I know I've seen people a lot talking, especially in the YouTube chat during the deeper dive, a lot of people talking about Miami and like they could blow pitchers up. And, they can. They do have some guys in there like John Birdie being the leadoff spot. I think is a pretty big addition. He's shown some decent ability and decent power in that leadoff spot. And Starlin Castro, not bad. Brian Anderson, Garrett Cooper, those guys are a little more known quantities, but not bad. But Keuchel does generally not get blown up. He did get blown up in that game, obviously, but a 4 xFIP on the year, keeping the ball down pretty well with just the 19% fly ball rate. It seems to me like that game was the aberration, and I think one would hope that he would get back to normal today. But, I could see having pause there because they might have just figured him out in Miami last time out. A question from Jeremiah Johnson here on the YouTube chat. And Chris, you're playing FanDuel too, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so he's saying he's playing a single entry on FanDuel, and his question is, would you pay up at SP or go with Eliezer Hernandez or a cheaper starting pitcher option? So on FanDuel, that quality starts with an important thing. Would you be willing to go to Eliezer as a starting pitcher in a single entry, or would you want to pay up on FanDuel?
Ooh, that's a really good question. Eliezer Hernandez is at 6,300 on FanDuel, and in that area, there's not really anyone else that's a good option. Maybe you can consider Bundy, but I think I would feel maybe more confident going up to, say, like an Alex Young at 7,000, because then outside of that, you're looking up in the higher tiers to really roster a pitcher you could feel comfortable with. But, once again, it's 6,300. So if you're paying up for bats and you're confident in your bats, then that's something where I'm not against it. The quality starts hard. He doesn't pitch 6 innings very often. So, I mean, I think he's only done it 3 times throughout the course of the season, 3 or 4 times. So that's difficult. And that's a huge part of this pitching position on FanDuel is getting that quality start and also being in position to get a W, which is another 6 points. So I don't know. For me personally, I couldn't see myself rostering him in a single entry. I would probably look elsewhere.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think on FanDuel, I would be more inclined to pay up. And personally, I would feel the most secure with Kershaw, I think, on this slate for a FanDuel single entry. But yeah, I mean, I think there is a possibility for him. I'm generally averse to paying down on FanDuel too much, my understanding there. So I would really want to pay up, I think, in this spot. I really don't trust Eliezer enough in this spot. And again, seeing a team for the second time in 10 days after you just smoked them last time out, I do think Atlanta has a decent advantage here, knowing what he's going to come at them with. And I think they can get back on track today. Let's see here. Any other pitchers you're getting? Because we have a bunch of guys in that mid-tier. I think we hit on the key ones in terms of ownership across all the sites, but you got these guys like Steven Matz, also some higher-owned guys like Shane Bieber, who's a bit interesting, but maybe not worth covering at too much depth. Anybody else you're getting at any decent volume who we haven't hit on?
No, I mean, I think that's pretty much it. I mean, that's all the pitchers that we've covered. I do like Pineda. I think he's in a good matchup. There's a lot of strikeouts in that White Sox lineup. And, it's interesting. He's been pitching pretty solid for the most part, outside a few blemishes, but seems to only be giving up 1 run a game, lasting 6-7 innings. So I just feel like you can trust him. And, I do have a few shares of Pineda.
Yeah, he struggled with power historically, but it seems like that's come down a bit overall. It's still, going against the White Sox, not the most terrifying spot. And being in Minnesota, too, on a not terribly hot day should help out Pineda as well. So yeah, I can see that one there. And the price is just a little bit too high. I think that's sort of how I feel about most of these guys. Like I could see maybe going to Cole Hamels at his price. Most of these guys in that, 7K to 9K range in DraftKings, none of them really stirring me up in any way. And like even a guy like Sean Reed Foley, who could be really good leverage against the Dodgers theoretically, he does seem due for some positive regression, even though that is a nice spot for the Dodgers. 8,300 for him on DK. Like I can't get there. So yeah, I think I'm more inclined to go with the cheap guys. And I think you do have some value, though. If you see something, one of these pitchers in the mid-price tier, I think going with them for tournaments today, these guys are all pretty under-owned. And if one of them has a decent day and you have a gut feeling for them, it could be their spot. All right, Chris. So this is the tough part. Even though you did have your good day yesterday, the dong picks are not my favorite part of the show. we've been getting our asses kicked the entire year by EMAC and lately Jake as well. And Josh, of course, is doing his usual Josh things, just chugging along mediocrely. A classic C+ Josh. But we are on the year. EMAC in first place with 28 total dongs. Jake right behind him with 27. Actually, did anybody get besides you yesterday? I don't think Rosario. I know Trout did. Rosario, Trout, Jordan, or Alex Bregman. You don't recall any home runs from those guys, do you?
No, they didn't.
Chat, if you got any home runs from Rosario, Trout, Jordan Alvarez, or Alex Bregman, let me know because I'm just giving them zeros, but I'm pretty sure that's a well-earned zero there. But Chris, you are the man who is the correct one from yesterday. Tom Murphy, the double dong, your first double dong of your limited campaign here. You start a little bit later, so you're behind us in terms of the overall number of picks. It's not too late for you to catch me, which frankly, I'll be disappointed by. So pick somebody terrible, Chris. Go ahead.
Wait, how many do you have?
I have 22 total dongs and 20 correct picks. You have 5 and 4, but I'm not making any picks next week, so I'll be out. So yeah, I'm not checking in. Fuck that.
That's a huge gap, man. I don't know if I can close in on that. That's pretty far.
I believe in you. All you need to do is keep getting these double dongs.
Man, well, if that's the case, I got a double dong tonight.
I believe in you.
Yeah. So you can go first, though. I want you to go first.
All right. So who is going to be my top owned guy that I feel most comfortable with? Man, tough call. I figured you were going to go with one, and I was going to try to make some sort of clever play off of yours. But I guess I will go with – I'm going to go with Freddie Freeman, I think. Eliezer, I think he's a decent pitcher. I do have some exposure to him. But that lefty power that he gives up is too much. They're in Atlanta. Freddie Freeman looks like a pretty strong play to me today.
Okay. I like that. I'm not on Freddie Freeman, so, it's interesting.
So you're not hoping who does well. That's fair. But there's a special place in hell for Chris's who don't support Chris's. We all know that.
Well, I'm going to go with the first baseman too. I'm going to go with Anthony Rizzo.
Oh, that was actually one of the guys who I liked a lot. Wind blowing out at Wrigley. Really nice spot against Beatty, who gives up more power to lefties. That's a good pick. All right. We will update as well if EMAC, Jake, and Josh chime in with their picks. Keeping my eyes peeled on the premium Slack now. And no, EMAC's chatting. EMAC's just asking you about weddings. For some reason.
What do you say?
He said, was the wedding last night or tonight? I guess for you and Tom Murphy, I presume is his joke.
Oh. No, he's talking about my wedding on TV.
Oh, well, okay. I thought he was just being a dick for no reason. That's not Emac. That's not classic Emac style.
I was gonna take Wilmer Flores. Actually, that was actually my first pick, and I pivoted.
There you go.
So it's all right.
He knows your weddings and he knows your possible home run picks. That's your old pal Emac.
Dude, what a supporter! I appreciate that.
That's all right. Emac, make your pick, Emac, and Josh and Jake, and we'll come back to them. Of course, also, one more call for Fantasy Draft. Go to FantasyDraft.com right now. That is the place to play Rake-Free Daily Fantasy, the official home of Rake-Free Daily Fantasy. And they are, of course, a sponsor of Live Before Lock. So go support them. They help us keep the lights on here. And, of course, the big appeal to Fantasy Draft is you are playing Rake-Free Daily Fantasy there. And FantasyDraft.com, all of the entry fees are paid to the winners there, 100% of them. All you have to do right now, go to FantasyDraft.com and use the promo code OSMO. Get a free 7-day trial that'll give you your first $1,000 at rake-free entries. So right now, just head over there, go to FantasyDraft.com, get some lineups in there today. Get some lineups in for NFL especially. That is the time you're going to want to be there. Chris, you're an NFL guy, right? How are you feeling about the NFL coming up?
Oh man, I'm so excited. We just did that stacking video yesterday, Alex, and got me really hyped. So last night I started diving in, looking at the salaries, looking at the matchups, and ready to pull out all the guns in the Millie Maker.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun football season. And yeah, I'm excited for that too. I actually have to watch your video, but everybody go check out that video because we've actually had a lot of questions recently about stacking in NFL relative to MLB. I know somebody in the premium Slack asked that recently. I think actually maybe during Alex's office hours. And that's going to be a helpful thing. The videos that you and Alex have done have been some of the better ones, the fantasy crunch that you guys do. So go check that out right now on the YouTube channel. Anything helpful that you learned there? Do you want to pass people on in like a 30-second interval?
I mean, just really understanding the correlation of stacking with quarterbacks and wide receivers and understanding which wide receivers to choose from and what to avoid when stacking and what not to pair together and what's not optimal, what is optimal. So yeah, I mean, check out the video. Definitely gives a good depth insight, very concise to the point, and we break it down.
Yeah, so check it out on the channel right now. Chris Randone and Alex doing a great job with those. And the Dong picks are all in now. Josh, the Chubster himself, going with Max Muncy against Sean Reed Foley. I, of course, went with Freddie Freeman. Jake going with Ronald Acuna. Emac going with Wilmer Flores, inspired by your chats in the premium Slack. And Chris Randone, of course, going with Anthony Rizzo. Are you going to be jealous if Wilmer Flores double dongs today?
Nah, man, because I'm rostering him. So, if he goes off, hey, Emac, thank you, because that's what I want.
The ultimate hedge, just playing all the dong picks in your lineups. Just this way, you're like, God damn it, Josh. But it's like, well, all right, I guess I got that guy in there. That's fine.
Man. I mean, you can even hedge yourself in dong picks now. It's amazing.
It's a smart move. Let's talk about the hitting here because obviously that is where the dongs are going to come from. And the stacks today are going to be pretty decently owned for a few teams. The number one ownership right now looks like it's going to be the Angels once again going against the relatively unknown commodity of Brock Burke, who's been, I think, serviceable in the minors, but not anybody to be afraid of. He's been promoted a little bit, perhaps beyond his depth. But we saw yesterday, I mean, they even in a crappy day for the Angels, they put up a ton of production. It's an even hotter day in Texas today, 100 degrees. The Angels are getting 6.3 implied runs against Burke. Where are you with the Angels? Because Mike Trout is going to be very chalky again, it looks like. And the stack overall, maybe a little bit less chalky than yesterday, but still looking pretty good. So how are you feeling about him, Chris?
Oh, man, the Angels. You know what's crazy is that I'm not getting to much of this game. And I know it's going to probably hurt me. The only person I do have that I've seen coming up a lot is Odor at second base, fairly cheap, and I think he's in a good spot against Berea. But, it's just one of those things where I'm treating this game like a Coors game where I just don't really have much interest in it right now. And, I don't know much about Brock Burke, and I don't know kind of, who he is or what he's about as far as his minor league level play. So, I know it's probably might hurt me in the end, but I avoided this game yesterday because I stacked the Mariners. So, I mean, no matter, it paid off, and tonight I'm going to do the same.
Tell you what, it did not pay off for me yesterday as somebody who had an assload of Mike Trout because he projects so well. I think Alex on the deeper dive said yesterday that his projection was one of the best he's seen on the year. And in fact, that projection is even higher today. I believe 1 full point higher, 1 raw point higher in terms of DraftKings points. So I am once again over the field on Mike Trout, which I hate being very heavy on a position player, but he can't let me down 2 days. he
just went off earlier.
Oh, that's right. He did. Yeah, of course. He did in the game where I wasn't playing it. He was terrible yesterday.
I don't like that, man. Last night he had 6 at-bats. Today he already went off. I'm like, it's done. He already produced what he needed to today. He's relaxing.
Yeah, it's like you know that show Double Dare on Nickelodeon where you had to like fill up the jar thing and you like it's like you have to hit the line. It's like his line's already maxed out for the day. He's done. But I'm going to go like a 16-point projection. That's higher than Kyle Freeland. It's higher than so many pitchers on the slate. Like, I don't know how you don't go there at least a little bit.
It's not that I don't want to. It's just the fact that I'm pretty focused on other matchups and other games that this is just not really – it's just not working out for me as far as roster construction. So, yeah, I mean, I love this game. It's not that I don't love it. It's just the fact that I'm choosing to go elsewhere, and I got to stick with my guns.
On a slate of the size, I mean, you can really make the case. Even I think on a 9-game slate yesterday, like to me, it just did seem like Trout was a potential slate breaker. But I mean, on this slate of this size, like, I mean, even if Trout had a crazy day, you're going to be put up 35 fantasy points. I mean, which is not out of the realm of possibility for him. And if he did continue that hot streak that he started today in the game that didn't matter, I would say that it is a spot where you're probably not dead in the water because there's just so many games here. There's a pretty decent probability of there being another 5-man outlier stack if the Angels don't become that stack themselves. The 100-degree heat, though, that is hard to avoid. That is a lot of Texas heat down there.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Let's talk about, I guess, well, who is your number one stack overall? If it's not the Angels, they are the chalk stack of the day, it looks like industry-wide. Who's going to be your number one owned?
Oof, man. There's kind of like a tie right now, but I like Chicago. I like Minnesota. I like Arizona. And that right now are like the 3 stacks that I'm kind of focused on. But outside of that, I like some Los Angeles hitters. I like Philadelphia hitters. And I even like Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh. Okay. Well, let's talk about Pittsburgh because I always like talking about Pittsburgh because they are a good team and people kind of sleep on them because they don't really have enough power. And obviously with fantasy, you're targeting the power a lot, but they do have just a bunch of good hitters here. This lineup today, 6 hitters above a 107 WRC plus in the lineup against right-handed pitching. And it is against Strasburg, who we talked about earlier. He is a quality pitcher here, but a warm day in a park that's been pretty good. I don't mind the idea of Pittsburgh because Strasburg is also prone for some blowups. How much Pittsburgh do you feel like you'll have? Because they really don't have much ownership at all. Only guy is going to be owned, it looks like, is Adam Frazier.
Yeah, I have Adam Frazier. I have a little bit of Moran. I have a little bit of Reynolds. And I mean, this is just because, this is an interesting matchup. They're priced fairly cheap. They don't strike out a lot, so they're going to be putting the ball in play. And they're not the most powerful team in the majors, but there is upside in certain areas. And so whenever you can, take advantage of that opportunity, I do so. So I have a few shares of Pittsburgh. And I mean, Strasburg, he is prone to sometimes getting rocked and beat around. And, a team that doesn't strike out, that's disciplined at the plate, could provide that type of outcome.
Yeah, I think that's a fair one. And Strasburg, he is a good pitcher, but it is a warm day. The meme about him is, of course, that he does blow up occasionally in the hot weather days. And it is not a hot day, but hot enough where maybe you can set off that alarm for him. His body will shut down and give up some production here to Pittsburgh. I do want to talk about the Cubs because you mentioned them as one of your teams. They are one I like a lot. Your dong pick is from there with Anthony Rizzo. These guys who are getting Javi Baez back in the lineup, going against Tyler Beede, who to both sides of the plate, giving up a 194 ISO to left-handed batters, 207 ISO to right-handed batters going back to last year. The wind is blowing out in Wrigley. That team total here, 6.3 implied runs, is now is actually now up to the highest on the slate. I think it's actually now to the highest on the slate, right alongside the Angels number. So the Cubs here are looking pretty good and also not terribly overowned. Are you going to have full Cubs stacks? How are you approaching this one? Because the top 5 looks like it'll have ownership, but not the bottom guys like Schwarber, LaCroix, and Tony Kemp.
Yeah, I mean, I like Schwarber. He's fairly cheap, and I like him at 3,300 on FanDuel. I like Hayward too, though, at 3,200. Both lefties. Beede is prone to giving up more power to righties, but Bryan is going overlooked, and I think that's because of his price point. So I kind of like Bryan because of that. I like Baez. Obviously, Rizzo is my Don pick. The wind's blowing out. The weather is really in favor to see that type of offense blow up. And it's interesting because the weather is similar to conditions that weren't too long ago where everyone was all in on the Cubs and they completely let them down. But now no one's on the Cubs and the weather conditions are really in our favor. And I kind of like that. So I'm always about going against certain situations where people are not looking at and not going with. So I like to go against the grain, and being contrarian and being against the grain is sometimes what wins you those big money.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point here. And the wind does look like it's come down a little bit. I think on one of the sites I'm looking at, it's a 5-mile-per-hour wind. I think earlier it's projected to be a 10-mile-per-hour wind, but it's still blowing out there. And I don't honestly, the wind to me, it's a positive. The spot versus Beede is really the thing because you have a bunch of hitters in this lineup who can really do damage to Beede. And Beede hasn't shown much. I mean, a 1.9 whip versus lefties, 1.5 whip versus righties, giving up pretty good power, getting barreled at a 9% rate, which is one of the higher numbers on the slate as well. So I think it's a nice spot to go to the Cubs here, and the win will only help for sure, I think, in this spot. Let's keep moving ownership-wise, because there is another team who actually his ownership, it looks like, has come up a bit throughout the day. The Atlanta Braves going against the aforementioned Eliezer Hernandez. I like them. I talked about them a little bit, talked about Freddie Freeman. I am with the field on the ownership, and they are going to be the number 2 owned stack on DK, it looks like. Comparably owned elsewhere, but DK, it looks like in particular, they're going to be owned on that level. You said you're under the field on them. What is the reason why? What's jumping out to you about a reason not to go to Atlanta today?
I'm not sure. I mean, I think it's because I don't know how to really decipher this matchup with the pitching and with the hitting, because there are certain situations where I like both pitchers, but then I'm also kind of nervous because they can easily both get lit up in a weird way. And so it's just, I don't see myself getting to Atlanta. Once again, there are other matchups that I like that people aren't really on, and I want to continue to just focus on those matchups, I guess.
Okay, that is a fair point, and that is, on a slate of this size, you do have to make those choices sometimes. But in terms of the projections, the top 5 is projected for the number 2 projections in terms of our projections at Osmo.com. Can you say the word projections any more time in one sentence? But that is where they are. So they're looking good overall, even though it's weird when that happens, where we have really good projections for Atlanta, but also Eliezer projects pretty well. And it's one of those things where I feel like, to me, I'm just going to have both sides and hope for the best. But a nice spot for Atlanta here, a warm day in their park, and maybe some revenge on their mind for what happened to them in Miami.
Highest owned team for FanDuel tonight. So, yeah, I mean, I guess people are on Atlanta, but they only have a 5% chance of being top stack. Well, never mind, because that is 4th. So, I guess I got a 20 minutes to understand if I need to put some Atlanta stacks in there.
Just plug in your Freddie Freeman. Don't worry about anything else. He'll be the one who carries all the load for those guys.
Yeah. Let you get all the glory.
The quadruple dong day for Freddie Freeman. Now that's all I need to catch up to EMAC. Then I'll get there. Great. Let me update the top stacks tool. And also, again, go to osmo.com/join and use the promo code live before lock, because this top stacks tool really does help. I think for people out there, a lot of people who are watching this video on YouTube right now, obviously the people in the premium Slack know, but these are the ways you really do shorten up your research process. And just looking at the top stacks tool and comparing the ownership compared to their chances of being a top stack. Yesterday, that would have put you on Washington, and people were not on Washington as much as they should have been. Alex talked about them. I think even he didn't feel like he had enough Washington. So this is one advantage of having the top stacks tool and a membership here with Osmo.com, because it is one area here where just kind of shorten up your process and feel good about yourself. Actually, Chris, you know who is the best chance to be a top stack relative to their ownership right now? One guess on the slate.
The top stack being relative to their ownership?
Yeah, who has the biggest differential between ownership and their chances of being a top stack?
Ooh, I would say, Philadelphia?
That they're number 2. Arizona is number 1 right now.
Oh my God, I even like that even more now.
Yeah, they don't have the best chance. They only have a 4.2% chance of being the top stack, but only 1.8% ownership. So that is a 2.6% differential, and that puts them as the highest on the slate.
This Kyle Freeland ownership just doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I would like to see an update to see if he holds up, because that is a pretty high number. And let me just double check that we didn't get another update.
All right, now he's 10%, so he's just dropped more than 50%.
Yeah, that's gonna ruin some of my lineups that I already put in, but oh well. Okay, that's more reasonable. 10% Kyle Freeland I could see. 20% was not a fan of that at all.
Yeah.
Let me just put these ownership projections in to make sure, because these do change pretty fast sometimes, especially on a slate like this where there really is no obvious points that people are going to at high volumes. I just want to make sure we're giving you this.
Brady is one of the highest projected owned players. I never even heard of this guy just till now.
He is 2K, and he is in that Cincinnati game, which could be rained out. So some risk to Brian O'Grady as well. He's also like a negative WRC plus hitter so far. One of my favorite things.
Nice.
His stats so far, he's only had 6 major league at-bats versus a righty. He has thus far had a 167 on-base percentage and a negative 21 WRC plus. So he's due for some positive regression for sure.
Love it.
Let's keep moving on to stacks here, because I think we do have one that we should talk about that you mentioned a second ago, the Philly stack. They are, again, one of the ones that projects to have a better chance of being a top stack relative to their ownership, getting 5.4 implied runs against Brian Johnson in Boston. And even though that is a slight park downgrade compared to Citizens Bank Park, it is still a really nice spot here going against Brian Johnson, who has a 2 whip, a 6 xFIP on the year. giving up a 350 batting average, only a 16% carry. I'm just going to read all his numbers because they're all in red and terrible. A 7% swing strike rate and a 10% barreled ball rate for Brian Johnson on the year. So he has not offered up much. Philly's starting to hit better. I think they made a hitting coach change, which is being credited for Bryce Harper's recent resurgence. But these guys overall look pretty good. And the righties in particular going against Johnson, who gives up a 204 ISO to right-handed bats. So guys like Reynaldo and Rhys Hoskins in that leadoff spot at a reasonable price. How much Philly you're going to have relative to the field? Because it does look like Hoskins and Reynaldo will be owned, but everything else here looks like it's mostly forgotten.
Yeah, I'll probably be just a little bit overweight. Nothing too crazy, but I mean, looking at the top stacks tool for those of you who are Awesemo clients, looking at this top stack percentage, they're projected to be one of the top stacks, but yet their ownership doesn't kind of compare to that. They're actually pretty low owned compared to the field. So I don't know. I mean, that's a big gap in differential, and that makes me even like them even more.
Also, people in the YouTube chat saying that the Reds-Padres game is starting at 7:20 Eastern time. I would, if anybody has any links, I guess you can put it in the YouTube chat. If anybody has in the premium Slack, put a link in there. But I would like to confirm that because I feel like everything changed real fast there, and not the most comfortable with that one still. Apparently
has gone up since they've announced the weather, which is yeah.
Interesting. So I guess maybe people feel better about it then. I don't know. We're on the show, so there's only so much you keep track of. Also, speaking of things to keep track of, apparently somebody named Buddy Boschers is opening ahead of Sean Reed-Foley today against the Dodgers. So that's what a name. Have you heard of Buddy Boschers before, Chris?
I kind of like it.
It sounds like a cute kid's toy.
Yeah. If you were able to roster him, I think I would throw him in there.
Yeah, but look, you can't go wrong with a guy named Buddy. I've never once had a player named Buddy. Buddy Hield in NBA always done well for me, so maybe Buddy Boschers is the guy.
Wow, Buddy Hield, yeah.
Buddy Hield, my dude. Probably slightly better than Buddy Boschers, I would think, but hell of a name. Should I even see? Is it even worth pulling up? Whatever. Buddy Boschers, I cannot assume is that good, so let's not even. Who cares? But might as well talk about that game though, because the Dodgers are going to be pretty decently owned here. Obviously, the spot against Sean Reed-Foley is what people were targeting initially, and now they're going to be going up against the Buddy Boschers buzzsaw. Try saying that one 3 times fast. The Dodgers here getting 5.6 implied runs going against Toronto. Will Smith moved up the batting order here, looking pretty good. Jock Peterson taking a big jump down the order, which is kind of killing his value. He was a $3,800 guy, or he still is on DK. That's much more appealing in the leadoff spot than down in the 8-hole overall. How are you feeling about the Dodgers? You mentioned they were a team that you were considering. Where are you feeling relative to the field?
So I was confident until I heard that Buddy Boschers was taking the mound. So this is something I gotta reevaluate and consider now, because this name it sounds fierce, and I don't know what's gonna happen. No, but in all honesty, they're one of the best hitting teams at home against right-handed pitching, and I don't like Peterson in the 8th hole. That kind of it's more than likely that he might get 2 at bats, because he's always getting pulled now after 2 at bats. So being in the 8th hole, that kind of limits him from his at bat potential, because he either strikes out or he hits a home run. It's kind of how Peterson is. But outside of that, I mean, obviously Max Muncy, that Dawn pick I think is a great pick, and Bellinger I love as well. Yeah, I mean the Dodgers. Once again, it's a team that I'll probably have one-offs from, but I won't have as stacks.
Yeah, so Buddy Boschers real fast. Also, apparently the tarp is off the field in Cincinnati, it looks like, so that is a good sign. So, yeah, if you want to go back to your Sonny Gray, now you can, it looks like. But, yeah, so Buddy Boschers' numbers on the year. He's faced 35 batters, a 31% carry rate, a 4 xFIP, and also been getting hit pretty hard at the same time with, I guess unlucky in this limited sample size, but a 2 whip. This is a kind of standard reliever guy, good strikeout stuff apparently. And he'll be coming from the right side of the plate, and then Sean Reed-Foley will be coming from the left side. So they'll both come from the right side, it looks like. Unless actually, well, maybe not. I don't quote me on that Buddy Boschers handedness. I could be wrong. So now that we know that Sonny Gray is okay, how are you going back in on Sonny Gray, Chris?
I'm not going to change him. I'll just put it that way. I'm not going to change him. I'm going to roll with the punches and see what happens.
You could also convert all your Sonny Gray ownership to Buddy Boschers ownership if you want.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. He's definitely. I'm going to consider him. Maybe I'll flirt with him in the late slate.
that is fair. Look, I feel like when there's a pitcher named Buddy Boschers on the slate, you just got to get yourself a taste. You just want to know what that's like to be in that world, in that Buddy Boschers lifestyle.
Oh man, this Buddy Boschers guy is getting blown up right now. Most exposure he's ever had in his life.
That's where the Kyle Freeland ownership is going, straight to Buddy Boscher's pockets. He's aligning his pocketbooks with that Kyle Freeland ownership. How about Minnesota? They are a team who, tends to go underappreciated, especially when at home. Going against Reynaldo Lopez, who's shown some signs of life this year, but still just a ton of power for Minnesota overall. On the year, they have a 224 ISO versus right-hand pitching. Got Nelson Cruz back in that lineup. Luis Arias showing signs of life in terms of power in that order, so he is really one of the weak spots. Him and Marwin Gonzalez can get it done. Jay Cave has also hit righties pretty well overall, even though I think he's been a bit cold recently. How are you feeling about Minnesota getting the 5.7 implied runs for them?
Yeah, I love Minnesota. I think they're actually my top stack. Everything's just pointing to Minnesota. And so I have Minnesota spread out a lot. And Minnesota is my team that I maxed out the mini max with.
Okay. Oh, it's interesting. So you are fully in on Minnesota. Anything jump out to you about that besides just the power spot and maybe not enough ownership that they deserve?
Well, that's one, is I'm willing to pay up for ownership that people aren't really wanting to pay. And I don't know why, because they're such a great hitting team, lots of power. They don't strike out a lot. But Lopez, outside of these weird starts that he's had, he was getting blown up. And he still has almost a 2 home run per 9. He does have a little bit over 14% home run to fly ball rate. So this is a matchup where the weather, also the wind's blowing out, especially for lefties. Reynaldo struggles with lefties. This lefty power, this regression's got to come. And I'm putting my money on this regression to end tonight.
Yeah. Okay. That is fair. I think the regression could be due there for sure. And yeah, I think this is actually what Alex would call an anti-optimizer play, because all these guys are projecting pretty well. You have a bunch of guys over the 2x value threshold, or at least in that range, and Nelson Cruz over 10, Max Kepler over 10 projected raw points. So yeah, I could see that being a valuable spot here. I think Lopez shown he's a little more competent than we may have guessed, but he still gets hit pretty hard. Still has a 5.4 xFIP on the year, and he still have a pretty good run total for Minnesota. So that could be a spot that's a little bit underappreciated today. Speaking of that, how about Houston? Because they're a team that they mentioned on the deeper dive, going against Spencer Turnbull, a guy who has actually, to his credit, done a really good job limiting power overall. Just a 132 ISO allowed against righties as well. He's been legitimately good versus righties with a 3.3 xFIP and a 1.1 whip, as well as just a 117 ISO allowed. Really a guy who, Spencer Turnbull, I'm actually kind of surprised looking at his numbers. He hasn't been bad, but maybe a bit lucky. But how are you feeling about Houston here with really no ownership on them going against Spencer Turnbull?
Man, it's like I want to roster Houston so bad, but Turnbull, it's like you said, low ISO, limits power. He has the lowest home run per 9 on the slate at 0.80 home runs per 9. I think he's given up 10 total on the season through 22 games, which is really low, and a 9.3% home run fly ball rate against a team that obviously there's a lot of power up and down the lineup. And it's weird because everyone was on Houston last night. So is tonight the night where no one's on them and they go off? And that's kind of something that I don't want to miss out on.
Yeah, and the thing too is like the talent for Houston is just so heavy where, Turnbull, he's faced a variety of batters. Actually, just out of curiosity, wonder who he's faced recently, but he's faced teams, none of them, no matter who he's faced, none of them are going to be as good as Houston is overall. And those numbers are there. You're, as you mentioned, really limiting power well, just a 2% home run rate, a barrel ball rate of just 6%, but that is not versus Houston. So it is a bit of a different situation. And Turnbull's last few outings, just out of curiosity, I don't always do game log checks for pitchers, but I'm just curious how he's been doing. 16.45 fantasy points his last start, 13.1, 13.15. But he's faced Seattle, Kansas City, the White Sox, Kansas City, Cleveland, Texas, Cleveland. So none of those teams are Houston, to be clear. And maybe just a spot where Houston does get to him. And I don't think he's really faced anybody of that tier. But he does some decent days versus Boston earlier. So who knows? Maybe Turnbull keeps it going. But I think at a certain point, Houston just being under 10% owned, the highest guy ownership-wise looks like George Springer at 10%. Could be some value in going there just because you got to trust the talent sometimes.
Absolutely. I agree.
Anybody else that you're getting who we haven't hit on? Because there are some teams that have decent totals, which may be worth a little bit. Any Tampa Bay for you? Because Tommy Milone, another guy who kind of the opposite of Turnbull, really struggling with power with a 263 ISO allowed overall, and not good in that respect, but a low 1.1 whip and a 4.6 xFIP. That's not as terrible as you would think. But Tampa Bay does have some hitters who can do some damage. How are you feeling about Tampa Bay going against Milone?
Oh, man. I like them a little bit. I think I like Arnaud. I think I like Travis d'Arnaud. Outside of that, I'm not really focused on them. So it's not a game I really want to touch, to be honest with you.
Okay, that is fair. Also, Mike Campbell, come on, Spags, Turnbull in same division as Twins. He has not faced the Twins once this year. So that is one aberration perhaps in his schedule, but his time has not come up when he's faced Minnesota.
Okay.
So there you go. So that's, again, just another point of credence to Turnbull maybe not being ready for a lineup of that quality. How about St. Louis? Because yesterday they had some ownership. That game ended up being more of a pitcher's duel with Dakota Hudson throwing on almost a no-hitter, and which is really just, that's MLB DFS, a day that Brendan McKay gets lit up and Dakota Hudson almost throws a no-hitter. But Gio Gonzalez here getting 5.1 implied runs against him for the Cardinals. It is another fairly warm day in St. Louis, which should help out what is normally a pitcher's park. And the ownership here, not really there much, but they have some decent ability overall. Are you getting any St. Louis going against Gio?
I'm not. Okay. I'm not. Yeah, I just no. It's one of those games where I'm just not touching, and sometimes I think about it. I'm like, this is one of the games I didn't really look at. I didn't focus on. Am I in trouble? But yeah, no, nothing there for me.
Okay, so yeah, I'm with you on that. I like getting to the Cardinals. I got to them a little bit yesterday, but I don't know. I do think the heat there maybe not quite enough. Like I still think that does favor pitching in that park for the most part. And Gio's been pretty decent on the year. Like he does limit power fairly well. Another one of those guys who kind of keeps things under control for the most part. Doesn't mean he can't get blown up, but just wasn't the most interesting spot for me. And didn't occur even with a very healthy bit of randomness in my crunches today. I think I was a 150% randomness today. Try to get my guys I like. Brian Peel asking, is Cole Hamels safe? I guess that's an interesting question. We didn't really touch much on Cole Hamels, but he's going against San Francisco, which is certainly feels like a safe spot in theory. Do you find Cole Hamels safe, or would you rather play San Francisco?
I don't want to touch that game. With pitching, I don't want to touch it. I don't trust Hamels, and I thought about it at once. I thought maybe, but nah. Yeah.
I think Hamels is fairly safe. The issue is that the San Francisco lineup is one that's better on another one that's better on paper, or rather better than it is on paper, because on the year versus left-hand pitching, they have a 148 ISO and an 82 WRC plus. But that doesn't account for guys in the lineup now like Yastrzemski, who's actually been hitting lefties really well. A 240 ISO versus lefties for him and a 149 WRC plus. Donovan Solano, not a great power guy, but he does get on base pretty well at a 390 OBP versus lefties. Buster Posey is in there. He's always in there, but he's still pretty competent. Evan Longoria, also competent. Like, these guys aren't bad. The only guys really bad in the lineup, and that's just mostly limited sample size, is Abistal Avellino, who's a name I'd put him right up there with Buddy Boschers and Brian O'Grady today. Not somebody I thought I'd be talking about on the show, but not anybody who's too much to worry about. But these other guys are fairly competent. So I don't know that I would call Cole Hamels safe, but I don't mind him. Like, he's in fine play. He does pitch deep, but the wind is there, and I think San Francisco's better than they seem. Let's see. Anybody else you're getting in your final crunches here? Any changes in your lineups that you're seeing as you're putting in your final lineups?
No, nothing really. I'm getting a little bit more of Texas now that we talked about it, and I kind of went back in and looked at it. So a little bit more of the Texas bats, the lefties, Chu, Calhoun, Odor, Santana. I didn't really focus on Jamie Barrea, but I looked at his numbers and definitely gives up a lot of power. And I think he's in a really tough spot in that hot weather in Arlington. So yeah, I'm there. I'm in.
Yeah, Barria gives up that ton of power. He's one of those reverse split pitchers as well, giving up a ton of power to righties, as well as a 1.5 whip and a 6 xFIP going back to the beginning of last year, as well as a 253 ISO to righties, but only a 150 ISO and a 1.1 whip and a 3.9 xFIP to lefties. I still that doesn't really affect Odor or anything that much, because I agree he's still a pretty good spot here. A 204 isolated power hitter versus righties, but I do think I would favor the righties in that Texas lineup. I think Danny Santana's in a nice spot. Not going to be owned because of that high price, but he's been killing it over the last year and change. And I like the spot for the righties against Barria. But going to Chu and Odor, really don't have any issue with that either.
Yeah, I agree.
Guys, hit that like button as well. We did have our double shows back to back, so you got 3 minutes left to lock. So just throw us a little like, throw us a little love before you guys close out for the day, and go check out, all of your tilting that you'll do inevitably when Mike Trout doesn't hit any home runs. We can share that together today. Looking for any questions. YouTube chat questions. No. I'm so torn between Kershaw and Dallas Keuchel for FanDuel cash. Any help, is asking Cameron Martin. I would wildly favor Kershaw personally. I think Kershaw is the safest pitcher on the slate. Keuchel is fine if he's getting you the bats you want, sure, but I would really prefer to have Kershaw. What would you do on FanDuel, Chris, for a cash lineup between Kershaw and Keuchel?
I would probably go Kershaw without a doubt if it's cash.
Yeah, I think you can find some cheap stacks that have some value potential here. And O'Grady, for whatever his flaws may be in terms of just not being good, he is very cheap. Probably a guy who can get you to value. I think there are some cheap enough plays there where you can balance out and find that money for Kershaw. And I would rather do that because you did just see Keuchel get blown up by Miami, even though the BVP thing, not something we're looking at too much. I don't think he would be the safest cash play in the world. Let's see. Who's going with Sonny Gray? Did you end up with any more or less Sonny Gray based upon the weather issues?
I didn't change it.
Okay. Yeah, Sonny Gray. I don't know if we got an ownership update. Let me just double check to see that because I'd be curious. Oh, we did get an ownership update 1 minute ago. So let's see if Sonny Gray came up or down. Because this actually is one spot that could be leverage on the slate. I didn't, because doing the show, I'm just not going to change my stuff right now. Sonny Gray at 24%. So his ownership actually did come up a bit. So, maybe not a spot where you're trying to load up on Sonny Gray like you would think with the weather concerns. Because I would have thought he actually would have come down a bit, but apparently people have enough time to get back to Sonny. Sonny came home. All right. Let's see. I'm glad you know that song. If I were doing the show with Jake would not have any idea what that song is in a million years. All right. Checking the premium Slack for any questions. Got tagged in something here. No game is postponed. Yeah, the weather, it looks like everything is going fine now, guys. So if you were concerned about the weather like I was and like Chris was a little bit earlier in the show, we look like we should be good. Got 1 minute to go. So get your lineups in. Hit that like button. Dumbass Texas. Yeah, Texas is a dumbass. Bieber's safest pitcher. I wouldn't say Bieber's the safest pitcher just because Kershaw, I think, is in a better spot and does a better job keeping things in pocket. Bieber's still going against a couple guys who really do have crazy power. Alonso with a 151 WRC plus, and a 314 ISO against righties, and certainly can strike out, though. Conforto, though, also does hit righties pretty well with a 130 WRC plus and a 230 ISO. These guys can do damage to him. I think Bieber's a good pitcher. I really don't have an issue with him. If you were trying to get a little bit less Kershaw and you go to Bieber, but I would find it hard to say he's the safest, even though like an 8% barrel ball rate's pretty high on a pretty muggy day in New York as well. So safe, maybe not. Let's see. Baltimore game all good weather-wise. Were you playing any Baltimore or Kansas City today, Chris?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I did not get there either. But it looks like it's okay. It looks like everything we're seeing is going to be playing, barring some weird last-minute changes here.
I think everything's locked, right?
Yep, should be locked now. All right, guys, we are locked. So please go to awesemo.com/join. We're going to have a lot of night slate content coming up today. All the ownership projections, the player projections, the top stacks tool, all the things get updated for all the slates now. So go check it out. Use promo code LiveBeforeLock at awesemo.com/join. Get half off your first month. And of course, you go to FantasyDraft.com right now. They're one of our presenting sponsors, the presenting sponsor of Live Before Lock. They are also the home of rake-free daily fantasy. So go check them out. FantasyDraft.com, promo code AWESEMO will get you a free 7-day trial. Your first $1,000 in entries will be rake-free. And that is the home of 100% rake-free DFS, where all the winnings go to the winners, which is how it should be. And Chris, what's your schedule coming up? Any more shows this week?
No, I think it's just the early bird on Sunday. And other than that, I think I'm free.
There you go. You are free to enjoy the nuptials. So you want to plug your wedding coming up on TV?
Oh man, come on. Nah, just a week from today. Yeah, ABC, 8 p.m. I'm gonna watch a beautiful royal wedding on TV. It's kind of weird to say that, but it's happening.
No, a classic situation. I mean, our boy Laffy is also going through a wedding. Probably not on ABC unless we're doing like a block of your guys' weddings back to back.
I know, right? Unreal.
That's the goal.
That'd have been pretty cool, though. I'm not gonna lie.
Got to pull some strings, get Laffy some coverage on there. I think he deserves it. But thank you guys for watching. We appreciate it. Go check out Chris on Twitter. Go, you're Chris Randone, right? Just straight away. Yeah. Chris Randone, Chris Spags, a dueling Chris show, as Josh has loved calling it. It's been fun hanging out with you, Chris. Fun hanging out with all you guys out there. We appreciate all you for tuning in. Hit that like button before you go. We'll see you guys again soon. Good luck.
Good luck, guys.